Chapter 1224. Alright, I'll listen to you. Although Shen Jingxian was currently overwhelmed with emotions and wanted to continue being intimate with Xiao Chen like this, she naturally listened to everything Xiao Chen said and immediately nodded obediently. Xiao Chen pulled Shen Jingxuan's hand and slowly walked towards the seclusion area. He also beckoned to Hong Zhu and said, "Little Hong Zhu, do you want to come with us? I've invented a method that has a 100% success rate in breaking through. I promise I won't cheat you." Before Hong Zhu could speak, Song Qingshu stepped forward and said expressionlessly, "Brat, although you are Shen Jingxuan's boyfriend, the matter of breaking through to the venerable realm should still be left to us. Don't even think about blindly getting involved. Since you have already met and talked about old times, you can leave now." Little Hong Zhu, is this person's brain jammed in the door? What does it have to do with him that I'm helping my goddess Shen break through? Xiao Chen curled his lips and said indifferently. Xiao Chen could clearly feel Song Qingshu's hostility, but he didn't want to take it too seriously. After all, Song Qingshu was a cultivator, and he didn't want to act rashly before he had a clear understanding of the strength of the Song and Hong families. "What did you say?" Although Xiao Chen had chosen to express himself in a relatively mild manner, Song Qingshu, a disciple of an influential family in the martial arts world, had never suffered such humiliation before. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. With a loud roar, he was about to rush over and kill Xiao Chen with a palm strike when he was stopped by Hong Zhu. Hong Zhu first took a deep look at Xiao Chen, then turned to Song Qingshu and said indifferently, "I don't think what Xiao Chen said is wrong. Shen Jingxian is his girlfriend. As long as Jingxian is willing, we have no right to interfere in their private matters. Have you forgotten that our principle is not to force others to do things they don't want to do?" "Big sister, how can this be considered a private matter? That lecher definitely harbors ill intentions and wants to ruin our plans." Hong Yin naturally disagreed with Xiao Chen's actions. She glared fiercely at him and protested angrily. Hong Zhu frowned. She was very unhappy with Hong Yan's words. She knew why Hong Yan hated Xiao Chen, but she had never expected that Hong Yan would use it as a pretext to target Xiao Chen. Wasn't this last too brainless? "You." Just as Hong Zhu was about to retaliate, Shen Jingxian saw that the two of them were about to start arguing again and hurriedly spoke up to dissuade them. "You guys stop arguing, I'll tell you my opinion. After all, we've tried many times before, but we haven't been able to break through successfully. So, even if it's a desperate attempt, we still have to try." "Who are you calling a dead horse?" Xiao Chen gently knocked on Shen Jingxuan's head and said, feeling annoyed and amused at the same time. "That's not what I meant, you understand?" Shen Jingxian playfully stuck out her tongue at Xiao Chen, then stared at him and continued, "Moreover, big sister Hong Zhu is right. Since this is a matter between me and Xiao Chen, I have the right to decide what to do. Now, I choose to trust his methods. At the same time, I hope that none of you will interfere with my decision." This. Hong Yin was dumbfounded. She was rather speechless towards Shen Jingxian. She really could not understand why a girl as intelligent and quick-witted as Shen Jingxian would listen to the words of a lecher like Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen held Shen Jingxuan's hand as he looked at Hong Yin and indifferently said, "All right, now that the matter has been resolved, we're going to start cultivating. Miss Hong Yin, I'll have to trouble you to move your precious jade feet and lend us your seclusion location for a while." Hong Yan's expression fluctuated for a while. Finally, she angrily glared at Xiao Chen, snorted angrily, and strode out of the seclusion location. Xiao Chen ignored her and turned to Xiafei with a smile. "Xiafei, I'll have to trouble you to move aside first. I'll be able to help Shen Jingxian complete her breakthrough very soon. Just wait for a while, you'll be able to continue your breakthrough here." The reason why he had put on two different faces was because Xiao Chen felt that Hong Yan was too annoying. This girl was like a cow, stubborn to the point of no return. Previously, after she misunderstood him, Xiao Chen tried to explain himself several times, but he failed. Now she was even worse and began to doubt his character. Therefore, Xiao Chen felt that there was no need to be polite with her, so he directly drove her away. But Xiafei was different. Although she was a little infatuated, Xiao Chen felt that she was a good person. Not only did she let him complete his first task as a white fox and get his first funds, but she also introduced him to many tasks when he was in dire straits. Compared to Hong Yan, she was much better. However, although she was gentle and polite on the surface, Xiao Chen still secretly kept an eye on Xiafei. This mature and domineering woman usually looked like a rich wife. He didn't expect that she was also a cultivator. Moreover, now that Xiao Chen thought about it, when they first met, Xiafei's cultivation should have been higher than his, but she had hidden it so well that even he couldn't detect the slightest flaw. However, something unexpected happened immediately. Not only did Xie not obey and leave, but she also blushed and bit her lower lip, softly but firmly saying, "Xiao Qin, actually, I also want to become a venerable as soon as possible. Can you help me make a breakthrough together?" "Senior sister Xiao Fei, you're not joking, are you?" Before Xiao Qin could react, Hongzhu was dumbfounded and hurriedly objected, "Why don't we wait for Xin Jingxian to successfully make a breakthrough, then we can try Xiao Qian's method. What do you think?" At this time, Hongzhu's heart was on the verge of collapsing. What was going on? Although he knew that Xie Fei was deeply in love with Xiao Qian, breaking through to the venerable realm was not a child's play. If anything went wrong, she could go berserk and lose her life. Xie Fei was being too casual. In truth, Hongzhu still didn't believe Xiao Qian's words about being able to help Xin Jingxian make a breakthrough in a short period of time. Although she did think that Xiao Qian was an omnipotent expert in the secular world and knew all kinds of tricks, this was still the Venerable Realm's mystic realm. The Venerable Realm was not like the secular world, where one only needed to move their fists and legs to solve problems. What was more important was opportunity and strength and even a little bit of luck. Hee Hongzhu, you don't need to say anything. I know what I'm doing." Xie Fei shook her head and rejected Hongzhu's suggestion. Then she looked deeply at Xiao Qian and smiled. "My view of Xiao Qian is actually the same as Xin Jingshuan's, and that is to trust him 100%. Seeing Xie Fei's gaze, Hongzhu could only sigh softly. He knew that he couldn't change her mind, so he helplessly accepted his fate and said, "This? All right, then I wish you good luck." Chapter 12:25. Hong Yin, Song Qingshu, and the others who were standing outside the seclusion area had ugly expressions on their faces. However, there was nothing they could do about Xie Fei. After all, this was her own will, and they had no right to interfere. They could only glare at Xiao Qian, annoyed that he had suddenly appeared and inexplicably interfered. Xiao Qian hesitated for a moment, then asked ambiguously, "That? Xie Fei, this kind of breakthrough method is quite special. The two parties must be in a boyfriend and girlfriend relationship, so it won't be too awkward. How about, you reconsider?" Xiao Qian had never imagined that Xie Fei would take the initiative to ask to join them in dual cultivation. Even Hongzhu hadn't agreed to his invitation just now. This dual cultivation required everyone to be naked. Xie Fei didn't have a particularly close relationship with him, so it seemed inappropriate for her to take off her clothes as soon as they met. Xiao Qian, you're too cute. In fact, I've already confessed to Jingxian in private. Now the two of us are as harmonious as sisters. Do you still think I'm not suitable?" As if she had seen through Xiao Qian's thoughts, Xie Fei giggled and winked charmingly as she spoke slowly. "Ah." This was the first time Xiao Qian had been called cute, and he was speechless. He subconsciously turned to look at Xin Jingxian and found that she had actually nodded slightly with a red face, obviously agreeing with Xie Fei's words. This time Xiao Qian was completely confused. What was going on? What had happened while he was away? A woman's world was really hard to understand. "How is it? Do you believe me? Do you want your goddess Shen to personally admit this to you?" Xie Fei covered her mouth and laughed. Her small cherry lips were faintly discernible between her slender fingers, extremely tempting one's imagination. Xiao Qian shook his head. Now was not the time to investigate the ins and outs. As long as goddess Shen agreed, it was fine. As for Xie Fei's matter, he would think about it when he was free in the future. "Since Jingxian doesn't object, then you can cultivate with us, but don't regret it later." Xiao Qian reluctantly agreed, but he was still worried and added another sentence. "Of course I don't regret it. I was afraid that you would be too shy to accept it, Xiao Qian, little white fox." Xie Fei's eyebrows curved as she used her charming and intoxicating voice to speak. In addition to her seductive voice, coupled with her seductive eyes and exquisite figure, ordinary men would not be able to resist. Even Xiao Qian could not help but swallow his saliva. Cough cough. Xiao Qian hastily used his spiritual force to control his mind. He pretended to cough twice and lightly said, "Then let's not waste time and start cultivating. You and Jingxian first sit cross-legged in the seclusion spot and don't circulate your cultivation method for the time being. Wait for me to arrange everything and tell you that it's okay." Looking at Xiao Qian pretending to be calm, Xie Fei was a little surprised at his resistance to her charm. She also felt that Xiao Qian was very nervous, but still pretending to be serious was very interesting. She wanted to tease him, but Xin Jingxian pulled her sleeves and signaled her to stop. "Got it?" Xie Fei pouted. She was still afraid that Xin Jingxian would mind, so she restrained her expression. The two of them sat down at the designated spot by Xiao Qian, and then they held hands and whispered something. To avoid being seen by Song Qingshu and the Hong family's third young master, Xiao Chen stood outside the seclusion spot. He first cast a camouflage spell on the two of them and the Hong family's sisters, and then he laid a barrier inside the seclusion spot. After everything was arranged properly, he felt relieved and walked inside the barrier. Hong Zhu and the others only felt that the bonfire on the ground suddenly flickered, and the scene in front of them seemed to be a bit blurry. But when they looked carefully, it was no different from before. They saw Xiao Chen walk into the seclusion spot and sit opposite to Xie Fei and Shen Jingxian. Then, the three of them closed their eyes and silently circulated their cultivation methods. All of this was naturally an illusion arranged by Xiao Chen. Although Song Qingshu and the others were cultivators, their level was not as high as Xiao Chen's, so they naturally couldn't detect anything wrong. Okay, I've arranged everything. You can take off your clothes. It seems that you didn't bring any spare clothes. It's safer to take them off, lest you have no clothes to wear when you explode later. After walking into the seclusion spot, Xiao Chen instructed and took the initiative to take off his coat. As soon as he took off his coat, Xiao Chen sensed that the two women didn't seem to be moving. He turned around and found that they both had a blank look on their faces. What's wrong with you? Xiao Chen stretched out his hand and waved it in front of them in surprise. Are you stupid? I'm not joking. That? Xiao Chen, aren't you going to help us break through? Why do we still need to take off our clothes? Isn't this not very good? Shen Jingshuan's face turned slightly red and she said a little shyly, If you really want to do that with us, at least wait until after we break through, right? Shen Jingxian thought that Xiao Chen couldn't wait to have a passionate moment with her after reuniting after such a long time, so her expression was a little unnatural. Besides, Sister Xie Fei was still there. Although they called each other sisters now, to do this kind of thing with Xiao Chen together, just imagining the scene made Shen Jingxian feel like her face was on fire. That's right, brother Xiao Chen, I didn't know that you're so impatient. Xie Fei wasn't as shy as Shen Jingxian. She winked at Xiao Chen and calmly teased him. Xiao Chen also knew that the two would definitely have this question, so he patiently explained, You're thinking too much. We're going to use the method of dual cultivation in a while, but the moment we break through to the supremacy stage, the powerful energy will burst our clothes. I'm afraid that you won't have clothes to wear, so I asked you to take them off. So that's how it is. Shen Jingxian and Xie Fei looked at each other. Shen Jingxian smiled a little embarrassedly, but Xie Fei was not embarrassed at all. She nodded with a look of understanding, and then observed the barrier he set up with great interest. She even reached out to touch it. Oh right, what is this thing you set up around us? Xie Fei asked curiously, Are you sure it won't be seen by the people outside? If there's a sound, will it be heard by others? Xiao Chen broke out in a cold sweat. Sound? What sound do you want to make? However, of course he didn't dare to ask this, afraid that he would be accused of thinking too dirty. He quickly pointed to the barrier and continued to explain, As for this barrier, it has the effect of blocking vision. Other people can't see what's happening inside at all, so you don't have to worry about the problem of being exposed at all. The same goes for sound, people outside definitely can't hear it. Chapter 12:26. Very good. Consort Xie smiled meaningfully and asked no more questions. She took the initiative to take off her clothes, apparently very trusting of Xiao Chen. Shen Jingxian naturally didn't hesitate either. She took off her clothes with Consort Xie and placed them to the side. Alright, we'll begin dual cultivation according to the steps I've mentioned. First, put your hands. Xiao Chen directed the two girls to sit in a circle around him and then briefly explained the method of dual cultivation. The two girls were extremely intelligent and quick-witted people, so they quickly understood the essentials of dual cultivation. They followed Xiao Chen's instructions and placed their palms on the other two's, closed their eyes, and immediately began to circulate their mental cultivation method and cultivate. Following the activation of the mental cultivation method, the venerable origin power within the barrier instantly surged and filled the entire seclusion area, releasing waves of suppressive might continuously. Outside the seclusion area, Hongzhu and the others couldn't help but take a few steps back when they saw the protective array suddenly light up with a white radiance. Presumably, Xiao Chen's group had already begun cultivating. Hongzhu, who was originally tired and sleepy, should have seized the time to rest while Xiao Chen and the others were cultivating. However, she was in no mood to do so. Instead, she kept staring at the three people sitting together in the seclusion area. Her heart was in a mess as she anxiously waited for the final result. For some reason, Hongzhu felt as if there were two little people fighting in her heart at this moment. It was extremely contradictory. On one hand, she felt that Xiao Chen's method of breaking through was too simple. It looked just like an ordinary cultivation method, and there was nothing outstanding about it. What was the difference between this and her own cultivation method? How could he possibly break through? But on the other hand, Hongzhu really hoped that Xiao Chen would succeed. After all, she had thought quite highly of Xiao Chen back in the secular world and felt that this fellow was a talent that could be molded. That was why she had used her authority to give Xiao Chen a lot of help back then. Hong Yan, Song Qingshu, and Hong Laosen all wore disdainful looks on their faces. They simply did not believe that Xiao Chen would be able to help Xin Jingxian and the others break through by relying on such a cultivation method, so they could only wait to see him make a fool of himself. Only Hongzhu's heart was burning like a pot of boiling oil. About half an hour later, the light from the protective array of the seclusion site gradually dimmed. Hongzhu and the others saw Xiao Chen slowly stand up with the help of the two girls, and then walk towards them with a smile on his face. What do you think? Have you all successfully broken through to the Venerable Realm? Before Xiao Chen and the others could walk out of the seclusion area, Hongzhu asked in a trembling voice. She clenched her fists and felt that her palms were moist. It was obvious that they were soaked in sweat. Xiao Chen could naturally hear Hongzhu's voice, but he did not answer. Instead, he smiled faintly and calmly removed the barrier around the seclusion site, as well as the illusions that Song Qingshu and the others had seen. Hongzhu felt her vision blur for a moment, and in the next moment Xiao Chen, Xin Jingxian, and Xie Fei were already standing outside the seclusion site. Hongzhu's heart was thumping wildly, and she thought that her vision had blurred because she was too nervous. Kid, I didn't know that you had some ability. To think that you actually succeeded. Song Qingshu raised his eyebrows slightly and said in a slightly surprised tone. As a cultivator, he could naturally sense the auras of the Venerable Realm coming from Xin Jingxian and Xie Fei. Song Qingshu, what did you just say? Did they succeed? Hongzhu was startled. He abruptly turned his head and impatiently asked Song Qingshu. Hong Yan also looked surprised. She had not expected that this lecher would actually have some skills and had actually helped Xin Jingxian and the others break through. Little Hongzhu, they have indeed successfully broken through to the Venerable Realm. It's your and Hong Yan's turn next. Song Qingshu nodded, then turned to look at Xiao Chen and indifferently asked, Actually, I'm very curious. How did you do it? Given your intelligence, it's very difficult for me to explain it to you, so you'd better not ask. Xiao Chen could not be bothered to talk nonsense with Song Qingshu, so he turned to Xin Jingxian and Xie Fei and said, The two of you have just broken through to the Venerable Realm, so you may not be very used to it yet. It's best for you to return to the seclusion site and consolidate your cultivation. After your breakthroughs, the pressure will not have much effect on you. The two girls nodded obediently, then returned to their original spot and sat down cross-legged. However, they did not circulate their mental cultivation techniques. Instead, they held hands and whispered to each other with sweet smiles on their faces. On one hand, they had just become Venerable Realm experts, so they were still a little excited. On the other hand, they were considering that Hongzhu and Hong Yan might come to dual cultivate later. If they started circulating their mental cultivation techniques, the protective formation would be activated, so it was better to wait for a while and wait for them to come in before cultivating, lest they were interrupted halfway. Kid, don't be too arrogant. Do you think that you're so great just because you can help others break through to the Venerable Realm? If it weren't for the fact that you still have some value, I would have crippled you long ago. Song Qingshu snorted coldly, feeling a little embarrassed. In Song Qingshu's eyes, people like Xiao Chen who did not have any strength but liked to show off were simply arrogant people who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Just because they had some tricks up their sleeves, they became arrogant. If Hongzhu had not stopped him, he would have immediately given Xiao Chen a good beating. Alright, Song Qingshu, don't be so sarcastic and say less. Hongzhu glared at Song Qingshu, then ran over to Xiao Chen and grabbed his hand. He smiled as he swayed back and forth. Little brother Xiao Chen, don't pay attention to Song Qingshu, that silly goose. He's just a block of wood and he doesn't know how to flirt at all. Hurry up and help me break through to the Venerable Realm. I can't wait any longer. Alright. For your sake, I won't bicker with that idiot surnamed Song. Xiao Chen flashed a victorious smile. He nonchalantly glanced at Song Qingshu, then turned around and left with Hongzhu. Song Qingshu was so angry that his nose became crooked after being exposed by Hongzhu on the spot. He wanted to mock Xiao Chen, but he was afraid that Xiao Chen would really not help Hongzhu break through in a fit of anger. If that happened, this little girl would definitely blame it on him, so he simply turned his face away and pretended not to hear anything. Only his heaving chest showed how suffocated he was. Hong Laosan was originally on Song Qingshu's side, but after seeing that Xiao Qian had successfully helped Hong Zhu break through to the Venerable Realm, he became a little uncertain. After all, he did not have any grudges against Xiao Qian, so he did not have any preconceived animosity towards him. Seeing that they were arguing, Hong Laosan, who was not good with words to begin with, did not know which side to help. He could only secretly stand a little further away and pretend to be enjoying the scenery. However, Hong Laosan inadvertently saw that Hong Yan was standing alone at the side. Her expression was constantly changing, as if she was having an intense internal struggle. Xiao Qian had just taken a few steps with Hong Zhu when he suddenly thought of something. He stopped and asked, "Oh right, isn't your little sister going to break through as well? Why didn't she come with us?" Chapter 12:27. My little sister? You mean Hong Yan? Hong Zhu pursed his lips and deliberately raised his voice. Don't even mention her, she's very virtuous and virtuous. She might not even like you, you lecher, you scoundrel. Besides, she has that little lover of hers, Song Qingshu, accompanying her, so why would she care about you? She's probably already thrown the matter of breaking through to the highest heavens. After saying that, Hong Zhu turned his head and gave Hong Yan a provocative look, only to find that she was so angry that her face had turned purple. She was staring at him hatefully, but she couldn't say anything. Oh, you're right. Xiao Qian shrugged and didn't insist on inviting Hong Yan to cultivate with him. He suddenly thought that since dual cultivation required them to take off their clothes, it really wasn't very suitable to bring Hong Yan along, because he and Xin Jingxian had already met each other openly, and Xie Fei seemed to have a good impression of him. Since Jingxian wasn't against it, there wouldn't be any misgivings about dual cultivation. As for little Hong Zhu, this little girl seemed to be very indifferent to the feelings between men and women, so it wouldn't be so awkward during dual cultivation. But Hong Yan was different. He had heard from her that she had never married since she was young, so it seemed that she was indeed a rather virtuous little girl. If he asked her to cultivate with him, wouldn't she think that he was acting like a hooligan and scolded him harshly? Wouldn't that be asking for trouble? Back then, when Xiao Qian had only mentioned the matter of reading books, she hadn't been willing to do so. Although it wasn't impossible to insist on dual cultivation, everyone had their own aspirations and couldn't be forced. Xiao Qian felt that it was better not to take the initiative to find trouble with her. Wait. Seeing that Xiao Qian and Hong Zhu were walking further and further away, Hong Yan's angry and aggrieved expression gradually disappeared. She clenched her teeth and, as if she had made an important decision, suddenly shouted and chased after them. Hong Laosan, who was standing next to her, jumped in fright. Looking at Hong Yan's back, he suddenly came to a realization. So this girl was thinking about this just now. Hong Yan stopped in front of the two and raised her head to look at the surprised Xiao Qian and said, I've decided. I want to break through to the Venerable Realm with you. Xiao Qian, please take me with you. Her tone was hesitant at first, but as she spoke, her expression became more and more resolute. It seemed that she had already made up her mind. Oh, well. Xiao Qian rubbed his nose anxiously. He really didn't expect that Hong Yan would take the initiative to ask him for dual cultivation. What should he do? Hong Yan would definitely not be willing to take off her clothes in front of him. The key was that it was not convenient for him to tell her the cultivation method. Otherwise, wouldn't the misunderstanding be even more serious? Yo, Hong Yan, weren't you scolding Xiao Qian a while ago? Are you actually willing to cultivate with the person you hate the most in order to become a venerable one? It seems like you've finally become enlightened today. Hong Zhu rolled his eyes and mocked in a lukewarm voice. Elder sister, don't say such sarcastic words to provoke me. If it wasn't for the future of the Hong family, I would rather die than cultivate with Xiao Qian. Hong Yan's expression was solemn as she vowed solemnly. In Hong Yan's opinion, the orders of the family would always come first. Even if she were to cultivate with the person she hated the most, it would only last for an hour. She would just treat it as enduring for an hour. After that, they would have nothing to do with each other. Xiao Qian couldn't help but curse inwardly. I'm the one who's going to cultivate with you now, eldest Mississippi. Is it really okay for you to put on such a righteous and stern expression? Aren't you afraid that I'll reject you? Tiske Hong Yan, oh Hong Yan, you're so great that I'm almost moved to tears by you. You might as well go and participate in the Touching the Hong family's top 10 people. You'll definitely get first place. Hong Zhu clasped his hands together as if he was worshipping a saint. However, his expression and eyes were filled with disdain. You. Hong Yan was so angry that her face alternated between red and white. She opened her mouth but didn't know how to respond. She also knew that quarreling was her weakness and that she couldn't be compared to Hongzhu at all. Thus, she could only turn her head away and silently sulk. Alright. If you two sisters have any grudges, you can slowly quarrel when you get home. Don't quarrel here and waste everyone's time. Xiao Chen helplessly shook his head. Soon after, he solemnly warned Hong Yan, I'll only warn you once. My method of breaking through is rather special. I hope that you'll be mentally prepared. Don't give up halfway and blame me later. Isn't it all because of you? Before Hong Yan could speak, Hongzhu muttered in a low voice. What did you say? Xiao Chen was standing right next to Hongzhu, so he naturally heard what Hong Yan had said. However, before he could ask, Hong Yan immediately nodded and resolutely replied, Don't worry, I've already prepared myself. No matter how much pain I have to endure, I can handle it. I absolutely won't regret it. In fact, the naive Hong Yan didn't notice the hidden meaning behind Xiao Chen's words. She thought that Xiao Chen was afraid that she wouldn't be able to bear the pressure and deliberately gave her such a warning, so she was a little dissatisfied. This kid is looking down on me too much. Isn't it just a short period of suffering? Does he really think that I'm a flower in a greenhouse who hasn't suffered before? And he didn't even tell Hongzhu about it, but me. He's really looking down on me? Naturally, Xiao Chen didn't know what Hong Yan was thinking. Seeing that both parties had no objections, he didn't say anything else. Instead, he led the two women to the center of the seclusion area and arranged for them to sit next to Xinjing Xian and Xie Fei. Then he used a concealment technique to confuse Song Qingshu and third young master Hong, and casually set up a barrier. The area of the seclusion area was quite large. Initially, Xiao Chen wanted to bring Hongzhu and Xie Fei to another corner to cultivate so that Xinjing Xian and Xie Fei could consolidate their cultivation alone. However, he also considered that the seclusion area would emit a pressure when he was about to break through to the martial honor realm. Moreover, Xinjing Xian and Xie Fei were consolidating their cultivation, so it wouldn't be good if they were affected. Thus, in the end, he decided to just sit together. If they encountered any trouble, he could solve it together. What's this? Hongzhu looked at the barrier that suddenly appeared in surprise and asked with a puzzled expression. Xiao Chen, I was watching you guys cultivating outside the seclusion area just now, but I don't think you guys used this thing to block it? Why is it blocking Hong Yan and I when it's our turn to cultivate? Don't tell me you're plotting something? Hong Yan was also very shocked. She reached out to touch the barrier beside her and found that it was very cold to the touch. Furthermore, it felt quite sturdy, and probably not even an ordinary person could break it. She had the same question as Hongzhu, and since Hong Yan didn't have a good impression of Xiao Chen to begin with, she looked warily at Xiao Chen and waited for him to give her an explanation. Chapter 12:28. Oh, it's like this. Actually, I had also used this barrier just now, but I used a little trick in advance so that you couldn't see what was going on inside, so you could only see what I showed you. Xiao Chen took off his coat and explained, as for this barrier, it's to prevent you from exposing yourselves. It's much easier this way as I can't control so many people at the same time. I still don't quite understand. Why can't we let others watch us cultivate? Are you going to use some trick? Hongzhu looked at Xiao Chen in surprise and asked the question in her mind. Also, what is your current strength? How did you manage to create such a powerful thing? Hongzhu felt that Xiao Chen was becoming more and more unfathomable. He could actually control venerable experts like Song Qingshu and Hong San so easily. Wasn't this a little too terrifying? Was this still the young and inexperienced boy she knew back then? Junior sister Hongzhu, didn't I tell you before? Xiao Chen is a very powerful special ability user. Not only can he control other people's minds, he can also easily make them lose their footing. Doing these things is like playing a game to him. As for the function of this barrier. At this point, Xie Fei deliberately paused to keep Hongzhu and Hong Yan in suspense, all so that she could see Hongzhu and Hong Yan's reactions. Although Hongzhu and Hong Yan were in conflict with each other, their reactions were particularly identical at this moment. Both of their mouths were slightly agape with looks of disbelief on their faces. On one hand, they felt that what Xie Fei had said was a fantasy story, but on the other hand, the barrier beside them was telling them that it was indeed true. Xie Fei looked at the astonished expressions on the two girls' faces with satisfaction, then smiled faintly and continued, in fact, it's very simple. Xiao Chen wants to help us break through to the venerable realm, and the method he's using is male and female dual cultivation. Dual cultivation. Hong Yan and Hongzhu exclaimed in unison. Hongzhu's voice was slightly trembling, but Hong Yan's face immediately turned pale, and not a single trace of blood could be seen on her face. Yes, dual cultivation. Xie Fei nodded and said slowly, In other words, he uses the method of balancing yin and yang to speed up the process of breaking through to the martial honor realm. He makes use of Xiao Chen's superb strength to help us resist the pressure during the breakthrough and successfully advance. Alright, I've explained everything. I'm sure you know what to do next, right? Hong Yan's legs went soft, and she almost stumbled and fell to the ground. Although she didn't like to talk about the matters between men and women, she had read that taboo novel. Dual cultivation? Didn't the so-called dual cultivation mean that a man and a woman had to do that kind of thing? Sister Xiaofei, you said that on purpose, didn't you? Hong Yan still had some hope in her heart. She asked carefully, actually, you didn't rely on dual cultivation to break through just now. You used other methods, right? What do you think? Xiaofei did not answer directly. Instead, she stretched out her hand and flipped the hair on her temples. She posed in a charming posture and asked in a lazy voice. Hong Yan's mouth was half open. Her mind felt like it was going to explode. She had no idea what to do. Am I going to lose the innocence that I've guarded for so many years? But if I don't participate, I won't be able to break through. If I don't break through, I won't be able to help my family participate in the sacrificial ceremony and open the door to the cultivation world. But for the future of my family, am I going to make such a huge sacrifice? In the midst of her chaotic thoughts, the scene before the three of them entered seclusion flashed across Hong Yan's mind. At that time, Xiao Chen had warned her that the method of breaking through was rather special so that she could be mentally prepared. She never thought that this was what he meant. Heavens! Xiao Chen, you damned lecher! You scoundrel! Why didn't you say so earlier? If he had clearly said that only a man and a woman could successfully break through to the martial honor realm through dual cultivation, I would rather die than come here. What should I do now? Could it be that he had to refuse again? Hong Yan's mind was in a whirl. She couldn't help but turn her gaze to Hong Zhu, wanting to see what her big sister was going to do. Hong Zhu and Hong Yan were also thinking the same thing. It turned out that the so-called special cultivation method was a man and a woman performing the ritual of dual cultivation. No wonder Xiao Chen had started taking off his outer clothes right after he finished setting up the barrier. Xiao Chen, you were as pure and innocent as a little fresh meat when you were in the secular world. I didn't think that you would still be interested in us sisters. Although Hong Zhu was a little nervous, he still teased Xiao Chen out of habit. Then why didn't you make a move at the pharmacy? It's just dual cultivation. How did it become me being interested in you too? Xiao Chen shook his head helplessly. This Hong Zhu was still the same, always teasing him whenever he saw him. It was like this in the secular world and it was still the same in the martial honor realm. If you weren't interested, why would you want to dual cultivate with us? Hong Zhu curled his lips, twirling a strand of hair in his hand as he said sourly, it's not that I want to criticize you, but if you want to take advantage of us, I'll let you take advantage of us, but you're actually so greedy that you want to take both of us sisters? Xiao Chen was a little dumbfounded. Since when did I want to take them? Weren't you two the ones who came up to me? When did I? Xiao Chen was about to protest when Hong Yan suddenly shouted angrily, Big sister! Why are you so surprised? You almost scared me out of my wits. Hong Zhu rolled his eyes at Hong Yan and said snappily, Big sister, can you be a little more serious? Hong Yan stamped her feet and glared at Xiao Chen with shame and anger, gnashing her teeth and saying, I really shouldn't have asked you to sympathize with him. I didn't expect him to be such a bad person, falling in love with every woman he sees. I shouldn't have sold the herbs to him. Forget it. If I hadn't met Xiao Chen back then, would he have helped us break through today? Stop being so regretful and think about whether or not you want to dual cultivate with us. Hong Zhu felt a little helpless towards his little sister. What kind of situation was this? Why was she still thinking about the past? Hong Yan's face alternated between green and white. She was supposed to sacrifice her body for the sake of breaking through, and it was even more so for the hateful Xiao Chen. How could that be possible? But if she refused, she might not be able to help the clan anymore. Even though Hong Zhu looked like he didn't care on the surface and even teased Xiao Chen a little, he still felt a little regretful in his heart. If he had known this would happen, he would have asked Xiao Chen about the method to help him break through first. Now he had fallen into a dilemma. He couldn't just leave without becoming a venerable, right? How was he going to explain this to Song Qingshu? After all, Xin Jingxian and Xia Fei had successfully broken through, so why couldn't he and Hong Yan do the same? Chapter 1229. Hong Zhu was worried. If they really left the way they came in, Song Qingshu might really do something irrational in a fit of rage. He was already a little disgusted with Xiao Chen to begin with, so he was even less likely to let them off so easily. Turning to look at Xie Fei and Xin Jingxian, Hong Zhu saw that both of them had a matter-of-fact expression on their faces. It seemed that the two of them had only broken through after doing it with Xiao Chen. Thinking about it, these two women were no longer virgins, so they must have been together with Xiao Chen in the past, so there shouldn't be any problems with dual cultivation now. But he and Hong Yan were both virgins. How could they wait virgins? This method seems to be a little problematic. Hong Zhu suddenly thought of an important matter and said with a frown, "This method seems a little problematic." "What's the problem?" "Junior sister Hong Zhu, I think it's normal that Hong Yan is unwilling, but why can't you cast aside your worldly views?" Xie Fei looked at Hong Zhu in surprise. Wasn't it just taking off her clothes? It was quite easy just now, so why did it seem like it was a matter of life and death in the blink of an eye? Hong Zhu bit his lower lip and frowned as he voiced his doubts. "Forgive me for being presumptuous, senior sister Xiao Fei, but you and Xin Jingxian have already done it with Xiao Chen, so there shouldn't be any problems with this dual cultivation method. But I am still virgin, so if I do it, it might affect the spiritual energy in my body." "That's right." Hong Yan's body trembled as if she had suddenly seen the light of dawn. Summoning up her courage, she hurriedly added, "The amount of spiritual energy is very important, and the clan has repeatedly warned us not to reveal it, so, ha 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 ha." After hearing Hong Zhu's words, Xie Fei was stunned for a while. It was only when Hong Yan added that she suddenly burst into a peal of laughter that sounded like silver bells. She laughed while clutching her stomach, her entire body almost bending to the ground. Xiao Chen raised his head and looked at the sky. He was speechless. What were these two girls thinking? Who said that dual cultivation meant doing bad things? Just a moment ago, he had been wondering why Hong Zhu also had a look of resistance on his face, but now, he understood the ins and outs of the situation. "I'm dying of laughter. My stomach hurts." Xie Fei laughed for a long time and almost cried. She patted Xin Jingxian's shoulder and asked her to explain. Xin Jingxian helplessly shook her head. She looked at Hong Zhu and Hong Yan, who were both stunned and confused, and gently explained, "You've misunderstood. Imperial concubine Xie didn't make it clear just now. When she said dual cultivation, you don't need to hurt your bodies. All you need to do is take off your clothes, put your palms against each other's, and circulate your mental cultivation technique and cultivate normally. Haven't you seen the legendary Condor heroes? Oh, so that's how it is." Hong Zhu finally understood why Imperial concubine Xia was smiling and couldn't help feeling a little embarrassed. Knowing that she didn't need to offer up her chastity, she secretly breathed a sigh of relief, but there was also a little disappointment in her heart. "Sigh, it would be better to really prove my innocence this time. This way, I won't have to participate in the sacrificial ceremony." In the end, he didn't expect that he was thinking too much. "Actually, you don't need to take off your clothes." Xiao Chen suddenly spoke and added, "However, when you make a breakthrough, the powerful impact will shatter all your clothes. After all, dual cultivation between a man and a woman is different from ordinary cultivation, and it's also because of this that you can quickly break through to the venerable realm. If you bring a change of clothes, you can ask Imperial concubine Xia to help you carry them, and you can change into a new one if your clothes are torn." Hong Zhu and Hong Yan looked at each other. In order to catch up with the opening of the venerable realm, Hong Zhu had rushed from the secular world to the inner martial world, and then from the Hong clan to the venerable realm in a hurry. He didn't even have time to pack his luggage, so where would he get a change of clothes? Hong Yan naturally didn't bring any clothes, and now she was even more conflicted. This lecher Xiao Chen couldn't have made such a request just to see their naked bodies, right? Seeing the awkward expressions on the two women's faces, and that they didn't immediately respond, Xiao Chen wasn't in a hurry. He indifferently said, "Think about it again. If you think it through and think that it's really unacceptable, then go out like this. If Song Qingshu and the others ask, just say that you failed to break through. It's not a big deal." In any case, Xiao Chen wasn't really interested in the two women's bodies. If they were shy and unwilling, Xiao Chen wouldn't mind. After all, he wasn't the one who was going to break through to the venerable realm. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Hong Yan was slightly taken aback, and looked at him in disbelief. Logically speaking, a pervert like Xiao Chen should really want to see her body. Why did he suddenly change his mind? Does this guy have some other scheme up his sleeve? Is he trying to advance by taking a step back? There's no need to think about it. I agree to this dual cultivation method. Just as Hong Yan's mind was filled with all kinds of fantasies, Hong Zhu suddenly agreed. She even cast a seductive glance at Xiao Chen and said with a smile, I was accidentally possessed by my younger sister's soul just now. Actually, Xiaoqin, if you still want to take a step further, I can also consider it. Cough cough, there's no need. You just need to take off your clothes and sit cross-legged. Xiaoqin inwardly shook his head. This girl is really too much. She knows that she doesn't need to show her innocence and she's already starting to tease me again. However, from another perspective, Xiaoqin quite admired Hongzhu. This showed that she was only teasing him like this because she cultivated seduction techniques. Her heart was actually very pure and conservative, and she wouldn't mess around with just any man. Boring. Hongzhu didn't continue and even joked, "Your two girlfriends are here, so I'd better not seduce you. Otherwise they'll skin me alive later. Let's begin." After saying that, Hongzhu very nimbly took off her clothes. Although her face was red, she still calmly stood in front of everyone. "Big sister. What are you doing? Hurry up and put your clothes back on." Hong Yan didn't expect Hongzhu to suddenly do this and was caught off guard. She was greatly startled and hastily picked up her clothes from the ground and hurriedly covered several important parts of her body with them. "What's the big deal? I'm just taking off my clothes." Hongzhu resolutely waved her hand and gently pushed Hong Yan away. He then indifferently said, "Hong Yan, if you really don't want to dual cultivate, then you can leave. I've longed for the strength of a venerable for a very long time." After saying that, Hongzhu took off her clothes and threw them to the side. He took a deep breath and said, "Xiaoqin, let's hurry up and begin. Don't waste any more time." Chapter 12:30. The reason why Hongzhu had made up her mind to do this was because she desperately wanted to become a supremacy. There was not a day that went by that she did not wish to break free from the Hong family's control, escape to the secular world, and live the kind of free life that she loved. In order to realize her wish, what was the big deal about taking off a few pieces of clothing? Moreover, although Hongzhu did not really like Xiaoqin, she did not dislike him either. She could still keep her chastity, and all she needed to do was take off her clothes in front of him. Hongzhu naturally would not feel any resistance. If it were any other man, Hongzhu would not even consider dual cultivation, but Xiaoqin was an exception. He was the only man that she could relax her guard against, and she did not have to worry that he would try anything funny. Besides, Hongzhu really did not want to go out just like this. If she told Song Qingshu that she had failed to break through, he would definitely cause trouble for Xiaoqin. She did not want to make Xiaoqin take the blame for her own reasons. However, to Hongzhu's surprise, Xiaoqin did not stare at her body. Instead, he turned his head and calmly said, "Hong Yan, I have already opened a small door in the barrier behind you. You can go out from there. Otherwise, if you stay here, you will hinder our dual cultivation." "I won't go out." To everyone's surprise, Hong Yan shook her head in an extremely determined manner. Biting her lower lip, she pulled Hongzhu to her side and pleaded, "Big sister, Xiaoqin definitely has other ways to help us break through. If he is not willing, then we should at least go out together. You are my blood sister, how can I let you stay here alone? What if Xiaoqin?" "Xiaoqin, close that little door." Before Hong Yan could finish, Hongzhu had already pulled her hand away and shouted impatiently, "Xiaoqin, close that little door." "Okay." Xiaoqin was stunned for a moment. He raised his hand slightly, and the entire barrier became seamless again. "Big sis, what are you doing?" Before Hong Yan could react, Hongzhu had already reached out and started unbuttoning her clothes. While doing so, he coldly said, "Since you don't want to go out, then don't waste your breath. Stay here and accompany me and Xiaoqin in dual cultivation. What are you wasting your breath for? I don't have time to listen to you." Hong Yan was completely dumbfounded. It was only when Hongzhu took off her jacket that she came to her senses. She jumped 3 feet high and screamed, "Ah! Sister, how could you do this? Quickly stop." "Haha, little sister Hong Yan, don't be so stubborn." At this time, CFA also stood up and came over. She said with a smile, "Where can you find a good man like Xiaoqin? In any case, since it has come to this, you might as well become his wife with us. In the future, the 4 of us can even play mahjong together." As she rambled on, CFA stretched out one hand and hugged Hong Yan's legs while skillfully unbuttoning her pants with her other hand. "Big sis Xiaofei, you, how could you do this?" Hong Yan was both angry and anxious. She was not as strong as CFA, so she could not break free no matter how hard she tried. Tears welled up in her eyes as she sobbed. CFA ignored her and continued to help Hongzhu take off Hong Yan's clothes. Hong Yan could only watch helplessly as the clothes and pants on her body were gradually taken off. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore and burst into tears. She cried like a pear blossom in the rain. Xiaochen, don't you think Xie and Hongzhu have gone a little too far? This is not right. How can we force others? You should hurry up and persuade them. Xin Jingxian frowned and said disapprovingly. Although Xin Jingxian did not particularly care about how many girlfriends Xiaochen had, the premise was that one must sincerely like Xiaochen. Xie use of such a forceful method was really too much. Little Hongzhu, Xie, since Hong Yan is not willing. Seeing Hong Yan crying like that, Xiaochen also felt a little sorry for her. He nodded and was about to dissuade her, but before he could finish his words, Hong Yan's clothes had all been taken off, and Hongzhu and Xie had even taken them far away, making it impossible for them to get back. Whoa, big sis Xie, why are you doing this? You are all bullying me? Hong Yan squatted on the ground and cried in a very aggrieved manner. She even tried to cover several important parts of her body with her hands. Because she had been sobbing all this time, her body was still trembling non-stop, which made her look pitiful and tempting. Although it was only a few seconds, Xiaochen still accidentally saw some things that he should not have seen. He hurriedly looked away, closed his eyes and said with some guilt, Hong Yan, don't blame your big sister and Xie. It's all my fault. I didn't explain the situation clearly in advance, which led to this embarrassing situation. But don't worry, I will take responsibility for you. Whoa, I don't want you to take responsibility for me. Hearing Xiaochen's apology, Hong Yan cried even louder. It's all because of you that I ended up like this. You lecher, pervert, scoundrel, you're just crying like a cat crying like a mouse, you're just pretending to be compassionate. The more Hong Yan spoke, the angrier she became. She could not help but raise her head and glare fiercely at Xiaochen. But when she glared at him, she was surprised to find that Xiaochen had his eyes closed all this time. He was not looking at her lecherously as she had expected. Even so, Hong Yan's hatred towards Xiaochen did not diminish in the slightest. If this scoundrel had not appeared at the pharmacy, her relationship with Hongzhu would not have been so stiff. If this scoundrel had not suddenly offered to help them break through to the martial venerable realm, she would not have to suffer such humiliation here. Even if you close your eyes now, as if to say that you don't have any improper thoughts about me, I still won't believe you. Hong Yan thought hatefully as tears fell from her eyes. Xiaochen, ignore her. She's just being unreasonable and asking for a beating. Hongzhu changed his charming and seductive image and straightforwardly threw Hong Yan's clothes to the side. Then he walked over and urged, let's hurry up and do dual cultivation. If we don't start now, Song Qingshu and Hong San will very likely become suspicious. Xie also nodded and echoed, yes, you've been here for so long, but the seclusion site's protective measures have not been activated. If they find it strange and come in to investigate, it will be troublesome. Although Hongzhu had never done dual cultivation before, he had heard of how it should be done. So, regardless of whether Hong Yan agreed or not, he grabbed her arm and pulled her up. Chapter 1231. Xie also walked over and pulled Hong Yan over to Xiaochen's side. She arranged for Hongzhu and Hong Yan to sit on either side of Xiaochen, then pulled the somewhat dissatisfied Xin Jingxian over as well. The three of them sat in a circle. Although Xin Jingxian did not quite agree with Hongzhu and Xiefei's approach, it was not appropriate for her to raise any objections at the moment. She had no choice but to helplessly take off her clothes with Xiefei and place their hands together. Xin Jingxian placed her left hand on Hong Yan's right palm, while her right hand was placed on Xiefei's. Hongzhu was on Xiefei's side, while Xiaochen was on Hongzhu's side. And, let's begin. Although Xiaochen did not open his eyes, his divine sense and mental energy were able to clearly perceive the movements of the people inside the barrier. Seeing that Hongzhu and Xiefei were so determined, Xiaochen did not forcibly stop them. After all, he only wanted to cooperate with them in their dual cultivation and would not do anything outrageous. Seeing that everyone was already seated, Xiaochen quickly took off his clothes and placed one hand on Hongzhu's palm while extending the other. However, even after waiting for a long time, he still did not feel Hong Yan's hand reaching out to him. As such, it was not appropriate for him to open his eyes and could only helplessly frown. Hongzhu had naturally also noticed the situation. Seeing that Hong Yan was still clutching her chest with her hands, as if she had been frightened and refused to let go, Hongzhu impatiently said, Hong Yan, if you really don't want to cultivate, then go ahead and cover it up. When Song Qingshu and the others arrive, I'll ask Xiaochen to remove the barrier and let them see as much as they want. You can decide for yourself. You. Recalling that scene, Hong Yan pursed her lips and nearly burst into tears again, but she managed to restrain herself with great difficulty. After looking around, Hong Yin saw that besides Xiao Qin, who still had his eyes closed, Hong Zhu and Xie Fei were staring at her coldly, while Xin Jingxian was shaking her head in sympathy and helplessness. She gritted her teeth and struggled fiercely in her heart for a while, but finally made up her mind. She tremblingly stretched out her hand and placed it on Xiao Qian's palm. When Xiao Qian sensed that the palms of the 5 people had touched each other, he said, "All right, you should first get rid of the distracting thoughts in your minds. Once you've calmed down, you can begin to circulate your mental cultivation technique." The others quickly entered a state of mind. However, Xiao Qian could sense that Hong Yan's thoughts were still not very calm, so her mental cultivation method was not circulating smoothly. Her cultivation was also somewhat sluggish, so he stealthily channeled a sliver of essence into her body without batting an eyelid, helping her calm down the uneasy emotions in her heart. After a while, Hong Yan gradually calmed down. Moreover, the speed at which she circulated her mental cultivation method became faster and smoother. Even she herself was a little surprised. She had no idea why this was happening. However, she couldn't care so much at this time. She wholeheartedly immersed herself in cultivation. However, Xiao Qian didn't notice that the person he was supposed to cultivate with was currently staring straight at his body with her eyes wide open. Her face was flushed, and she would let out a low moan from time to time, as if she was extremely thirsty. Second brother Song, I think something's wrong. Outside the seclusion area, third young Master Hong waited for a long time, but he still didn't see the white light of the protective array. He couldn't help but say worriedly, Hong Zhu and Hong Yin have been in there for so long, why haven't they started cultivating yet? Don't tell me that brat called. Xiao Qian wants to play some tricks? I don't think he would dare to do that unless he doesn't want to live anymore. Song Qingshu had just snorted when he saw a faint white light gradually illuminate the seclusion area. Third young Master Hong was overjoyed. He pointed at the white light and exclaimed happily, "It's lit up, it's lit up." Second brother Song, you're right. I was worrying too much. This Xiao Qian is still reliable. However, Song Qingshu didn't look happy at all. Instead, he frowned and pondered for a while, then said coldly, after Hong Zhu and Hong Yin successfully break through to the supremacy realm, we must first find out what method that kid used to help them break through successfully. Once we know the inside story, we'll find a chance to get rid of him. This kind of person is too big of a threat to our cultivation sects. What? It can't be, right? Third young Master Hong was shocked at first. Then he pinched his chin and pondered for a while. He shook his head disapprovingly and said, even if you want to get rid of Xiao Qian, I don't think little Hong Zhu will agree. Moreover, since that kid can help others break through to the supremacy realm so easily, he must have something extraordinary about him. If we can convince him to work for us, it'll actually be pretty good. In fact, third young Master Hong valued Xiao Qian's ability, especially his ability to help others break through to the supremacy realm. It was an extremely rare ability. He was a rare talent. Although the supremacy realm was opened every year and there was an endless stream of people coming to challenge it, there weren't many people who could successfully break through. No, it should be said that there were very few people who could. The reason was very simple. There were very few secluded cultivation spots in the supremacy realm to begin with. Everyone would have to expend a lot of effort just to fight for them. Even if they managed to snatch one, the pressure from the supremacy realm's origin force would make them feel helpless. After enduring the pressure, it was still a problem whether they could comprehend the meaning of breaking through. Therefore, supremacies were still extremely rare in the martial arts world. In every sect, supremacies were the leaders. If they had Xiao Qian's help, the success rate of the disciples who entered the supremacy realm would be greatly increased. Wouldn't that greatly increase the strength of the immortal cultivation sect? When facing the ghost cultivation sect, they wouldn't have to be restrained anymore. Third young Master Hong, you're too naive. Song Qingshu poured a bucket of cold water on him mercilessly. With Xiao Qian's eccentric personality, he definitely wouldn't be willing to submit to others. Don't think that you can recruit him to our side. Besides, if the other sects in the martial arts world discover this secret, such as our sworn enemy, the Ghost Cultivation sect, we'll be in big trouble. In fact, Song Qingshu was also quite curious about Xiao Qian's ability. However, he felt that since this kid had already used this ability to help Hong Zhu and the others break through, they should have learned it too. In that case, Xiao Qian wasn't important anymore. Well, according to what you said, it makes sense. Then let's wait for them to come out and act according to the circumstances. If it really doesn't work, we'll ask Xiao Qian to go back first and decide what to do after he returns home. Third young Master Hong nodded slightly and agreed with Song Qingshu. Although third young Master Hong cherished talents, compared to the safety of the immortal cultivation sect, the safety of the entire sect was naturally more important. If Xiao Qin couldn't be used by the immortal cultivation sect, then it was better not to leave him in front of others. Chapter 1232. Although the two people outside were whispering to each other and discussing countermeasures, Xiao Qin, who was in seclusion, had no idea what they were planning. This was because he had just successfully helped Hong Zhu and Hong Yan break through to the martial honor stage. At the same time, he was surprised to discover that after 2 rounds of dual cultivation, his cultivation had actually reached the nascent soul stage. When he helped Xin Jingxian and Xia Fei break through, Xiao Qin had already broken through from the 7th level of the nascent soul stage to the 9th level of the nascent soul stage. That feeling was extremely wonderful. He did not expect that he would jump 2 levels in a row. Xiao Qin could even faintly touch the barrier of the next stage. Xiao Qin, I found that there is something wrong with you. As Xiao Qin was feeling the changes in his strength, Elder Heaven Ancestor suddenly said in his sea of consciousness. It can't be? Elder Heaven Ancestor, don't scare me. Is it because I have leveled up too fast that there is something abnormal in my body? After hearing what Elder Heaven Ancestor said, Xiao Qin's heart suddenly tightened. He hurriedly used Yuan Qi to look at his dantian and meridians. In the end, after a round of inspection, he did not find anything wrong. He suddenly felt a little puzzled. I'm not too sure. But as far as I know, even with the dual cultivation method, it is impossible for a person to level up so many times in a short period of time. And you are now almost at the profound ascension stage. This kind of explosive growth is simply incredible. Elder Heaven Ancestor shook his head and was so surprised that he could not close his mouth. So the next level is the profound ascension stage. Does that mean I can learn an even more powerful skill? Tell me quickly. Xiao Qin nodded and shrugged his shoulders. He did not feel that there was anything strange about Elder Heaven Ancestor's amazement. Anyway, his own cultivation speed had always been almost the same as riding a rocket. He had long been used to it. Well, let's wait until you really break through to the profound ascension stage. Your leveling speed is really too fast. I have to check the heaven seizing fortune battle art first. If I find any problems, I'll let you know later. The Elder Heaven Ancestor then added, How strange. This kid's cultivation is almost catching up to mine. Isn't it just cultivating against the flow? How can he be so awesome? Hearing the Elder Heaven Ancestor's mutterings, Xiao Qin shook his head helplessly. It seemed that the Elder Heaven Ancestor did not discover any problems, but was surprised because Xiao Qin's cultivation speed was too fast, about to surpass the Elder Heaven Ancestor's speed in the past. Elder Sky did not say anything else, so Xiao Qin collected his thoughts. He did not immediately stop circulating his mental cultivation method. Instead, he continued to dual cultivate with the girls until all 4 of them had consolidated their martial supremacy cultivation base. Only then did he slowly exhale and stop cultivating. He closed his eyes and focused his mind. Feeling that the pressure around her gradually weakened, Hong Yan immediately let go of Xiao Qin's hand, fearing that he would open his eyes at any time. She quickly turned around, picked up her clothes and put them on. With her back facing Xiao Qin, Hong Yan secretly wiped away the tears on her face, and then stood there silently, not knowing what to say for a while. Although Xiao Qin did not open his eyes before and after the cultivation, Hong Yan's disgust for Xiao Qin still did not decrease. The idea that Xiao Qin was a lecher had always been deeply rooted in her mind. But now, this big lecher had helped her break through to the venerable realm and had become her benefactor. Hong Yan did not know how she should treat him. Hong Zhu did not hurry to put on his clothes, but instead stared at his hands, feeling the surging power in his body, his heart filled with joy. He had finally become a venerable expert. His long-cherished wish of many years had finally been fulfilled. Next, he would find a chance to escape from the Hong family, then hide from Grandfather Patriarch's eyes and ears, quietly live in seclusion in the secular world, and live a carefree life. Little brother Xiao Qin, thank you so much for your help this time. I don't know how to thank you. How about Big Sister here dedicates my life to you? In any case, you've always been fantasizing about me, so how about I stay by your side from now on and serve you well? Hong Zhu's eyes turned and she moved closer to Xiao Qin, speaking in a seductive voice. Hong Zhu really did not make such a suggestion because she wanted to thank Xiao Qin. She was thinking that after she escaped from the Hong family, if she could make use of Xiao Qin's connections in the secular world, she might be able to find a good place to hide. In any case, this kid was very clever and had many tricks up his sleeves. He would definitely be able to help her. Oh, there's no need for that. You should put on your clothes first. Xiao Chen sensed someone approaching him and smelled the fragrance of a woman's body. His heart moved slightly and he subconsciously stepped back. Are you for real? You wouldn't dislike me, would you? Hongzhu was startled and immediately put on a heartbroken expression. She clasped her heart and said, "Back then you and I were so lovey-dovey, so tender and sweet. If I couldn't see you for even a day, I would think of you day and night. Now, it's only been a year and you're actually saying that I'm old and withered. Stop messing around. When did we become lovey-dovey? Be careful or I'll sue you for slander." Xiao Chen's head was about to explode. Goddess Shun was still listening on the side, so he could not let others misunderstand. Without waiting for Hongzhu to speak again, Xiao Chen helplessly spread out his hands and said, "All right, Hongzhu, don't think too much about it. This is just a small matter, so you don't need to be too touched. Just treat it as me repaying you for taking Xin Jingshen to cultivate and taking good care of her this year." It was not that Xiao Chen wanted to play the part of a gentleman, but he had never felt particularly strongly about Hongzhu, and only saw her as a friend. Besides, if this invincible little demoness really got together with him, wouldn't she eat him up? He wouldn't be able to bear it. Aya, don't be in such a hurry to refuse. It's not too late to think about it first. Although Hongzhu had been rejected, she did not take it to heart. She covered her mouth and giggled a few times, then picked up the clothes on the ground and put them on. Xin Jingshen was both angry and amused at this scene and she shook her head. Fortunately, she had been with Hongzhu for a long time, so she already understood her temperament. Otherwise, if it was her in the past, she might really have misunderstood. After Hongzhu finished putting on her clothes, she turned around and saw that Hong Yen was still silently standing to the side. Her face immediately sank and she coldly said, "Hong Yen, Xiao Chen spent so much effort to help us break through to the martial honor realm, but you didn't even say a word of thanks. You're really shameless." Thank you, Xiao Chen." Hong Yen trembled and stammered, but her tone did not sound sincere at all. Instead, there was a trace of resentment. Moreover, her back was still facing Xiao Chen and she did not turn around. Chapter 1233. It's fine, don't listen to your sister's nonsense. It's just a slight effort, it didn't take much effort. Xiao Chen waved his hand. When he sensed that Hongzhu had already put on his clothes, he opened his eyes and indifferently said, "All right, since you've all consolidated your cultivation, my task is complete. Let's go out now." Before Xiao Chen could finish speaking, he suddenly felt someone hugging him tightly from behind. Their soft and warm skin pressed against each other. It was as if he could feel the blood pulsing under that layer of skin. It was lively and full of life. Before Xiao Chen could react, an enchanting voice resounded in his ears, "Great White Fox, don't be in such a hurry to go out. Why don't we take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to have some fun and enjoy the pleasures between a man and a woman so that we don't waste this beautiful scenery? What do you think?" Xiao Chen didn't need to turn his head to know from the voice that the person behind him was undoubtedly Xie Fei. He closed his eyes again, trying his best to ignore the rich fragrance of a woman and the soft feeling of her delicate body pressed against his. He calmly said, "Xie Fei, do you know what you're saying?" When he was helping Hongzhu and Hong Yen make breakthroughs, Xiao Chen had already noticed that Xie Fei, who was sitting across from him, was a little absent-minded. Instead of consolidating her cultivation, her mind was filled with all sorts of nonsense. Fortunately, Xie Fei had already broken through to the supremacy realm, so she wouldn't be in any danger. Under the influence of others, she didn't suffer any cultivation deviation. Xiao Chen had thought that everything would be fine after she finished her cultivation, so he didn't expect her to do something even more exaggerated. Xin Jingshen and Hongzhu were a little dumbfounded when they saw Xie Fei leaning against Xiao Chen, not knowing how to react. Even Hong Yen, who had her back to Xiao Chen, turned her head slightly to see what was going on. "Oh, Great White Fox, don't be so cold to me." Xie Fei pouted and hugged Xiao Chen even tighter as she muttered, "I've already come to you on my own accord, can't you at least comfort me? Besides, you won't lose out in this kind of thing, so what's the big deal?" Xie Fei's eyes were misty as she leaned on Xiao Chen's broad and strong back. Feeling the strong masculine scent on his body, she became even more mesmerized. She couldn't help but stretch out her hand and continuously caress his pectoral muscles. Furthermore, her hand was gradually moving downwards. Xiao Chen's body stiffened. He did not dare to pull concubine Xie down, nor did he dare to respond. His relationship with concubine Xie had never been close. Today, when she suddenly said that she wanted to serve him with Xin Jingshen, Xiao Chen was already a little surprised. Now that this had happened, he really did not know what to do. In desperation, he could only look at the other women for help. Consort Xie, how could you do this? Even if you like Xiao Chen, you can't do such a thing in front of Hong Zhu and Hong Yin. This is wrong. Hurry up and stop. When Xin Jingxian felt Xiao Chen's gaze, she shuddered and immediately shouted to stop him. Although she was not averse to such matters between men and women, it should also be done on different occasions. She wanted to be with Xiao Chen in front of unrelated people. Wasn't that just giving them a free show? That's right, senior sister Xiao Fei. You don't act recklessly. Hong Zhu was also startled. Looking at Concubine Xie's appearance, he suddenly thought of something and frowned. It's over, Concubine Xie's illness is acting up. Acting up? What illness? Hong Zhu, hurry up and explain. How can we save her? If it goes on like this. Xin Jingxian was taken aback. She immediately pulled Hong Zhu and asked. Originally, Xin Jingxian was a little dissatisfied with Concubine Xie's desire, but now that she knew that Concubine Xie's illness was acting up, all that was left in her heart was anxiety and worry. All she could think of was how to cure Concubine Xie. This was the innate kindness of Xin Jingxian. Hong Zhu wanted to say something but hesitated. Seeing that Concubine Xie's actions were becoming more and more intense, he could only look at Xiao Chen and say with some embarrassment, Xiao Chen, you quickly think of a way. When senior sister Xiao Fei first started cultivating the art of charm, she accidentally fell into cultivation deviation, so from time to time, she would have physiological needs. Unless she can do it herself in time, the consequences will be unimaginable. What the hell, isn't this clearly a trap? Why didn't you say so earlier? Xiao Chen finally understood and immediately got up, quickly put on his clothes and pulled Concubine Xie up from behind him. At this time, Concubine Xie's skin was emitting waves of red, her eyes were blurred, and her expression was hot and restless. Her breath was short and fragrant, and it was obvious that she was about to fall into cultivation deviation. Seeing that the situation was far from good, Xiao Chen immediately grabbed Concubine Xie's wrist and infused his yuan qi into her body, temporarily suppressing her restless desires. After a while, Concubine Xie gradually calmed down and no longer pestered Xiao Chen for comfort. Instead, she slowly fell into a deep slumber, the red blush on her body slowly receding and her breathing becoming calmer. Only then did Xiao Chen breathe a sigh of relief. Xiao Chen, how is Concubine Xie? Xin Jingxian asked nervously from the side. Seeing Concubine Xie's unconscious appearance, Xin Jingxian felt a little guilty and inwardly blamed herself for wrongly blaming Concubine Xie. However, she really hadn't expected that cultivating the art of charm would lead to cultivation deviation. Xin Jingxian inwardly reminded herself that she would have to be more careful when cultivating in the future, lest she end up like Concubine Xie and make a fool of herself in public. She's fine for the time being, but I'm only treating the symptoms, not the root cause. Xiao Chen shook his head as he used his yuan qi to examine Concubine Xie's meridians and dantian. What? Sister Concubine Xie is so pitiful, can't you cure her directly? Xin Jingxian worriedly looked at Concubine Xie and couldn't help but ask. And there's still an urge in her body, which is what we call a heart demon. I can't remove it and it could erupt at any time. Xiao Chen frowned and turned to Hong Zhu. Little Hong Zhu, let me ask you, what is the matter with the art of charm that you cultivate? Will a heart demon appear as long as you cultivate? You and Xin Jingxian wouldn't also erupt, right? You can rest assured, Jingxian and I have never encountered any accidents while cultivating the art of charm, so it won't end up like senior sister Xiaofei. Hong Zhu rarely teased Xiao Chen, but instead let out a faint sigh. However, what made Hong Zhu feel a little gratified was that Xiao Chen had actually taken the initiative to show concern for his condition. This was something that he had never expected, and he had originally thought that Xiao Chen wasn't interested in him. Xin Jingxian also felt that Xiao Chen cared for her, and her heart was moved and warm. She subconsciously stretched out her hand and gently held Xiao Chen's hand. Chapter 1234. Xiao Chen smiled faintly at Xin Jingxian, patted the back of her hand and asked, how did Consort Xie's cultivation go berserk the first time? What exactly happened at that time? Hong Zhu lowered his head and thought for a moment. He found it difficult to speak about Consort Xie's situation and was momentarily at a loss for words. Xin Jingxian and Xiao Chen's fingers were intertwined as they stared at Hong Zhu. She also wanted to know what exactly happened to Consort Xie, so she did not say anything and quietly listened. After a moment of thought, Hong Zhu took a deep breath, gnashed his teeth and said, Back then, when Consort Xie was still in her budding years, she fell in love with a man from another sect, but that man had no interest in Consort Xie at all. If an ordinary person had no interest in her, they would have directly rejected her. But that man actually took advantage of Consort Xie's feelings and hooked up with a senior sister from my sect. Damn it. How could he do that? This is too evil. Xin Jingxian could not help covering her mouth and exclaiming. Because of this, after senior sister Xiao Fei learned the truth, she began to abandon herself to despair, leaving behind a knot in her heart. At this point, Hongzhu reached out to smooth Consort Xie's beautiful hair and continued. Later on, during one of her cultivation sessions, she was unable to overcome this inner demon and nearly went berserk. Fortunately, her sect master discovered it in time and saved her. Xiao Qin stared at Consort Xie's unconscious face and already knew the outcome of this matter. Consort Xie must have been unable to resist her inner demon, causing her to become like this and become somewhat impulsive. Thinking about how Consort Xie's husband Wang Xiongzhuang had never shared the same bed with her, so Consort Xie must have suffered a lot. Sure enough, Hongzhu continued, although sect master saved her life, he was unable to help her get rid of her inner demon, so senior sister Xiao Fei was left with a sequela. From time to time she would want to do that with a man. Unless she could be satisfied and released, it was very likely that her body would explode and she would die. Another scumbag. Without waiting for Xiao Qin to speak, Hong Yan, who was standing far away, snorted first. She glanced at Xiao Qin, intentionally or unintentionally, and cursed angrily. I didn't expect Consort Xie to have such a complicated past. Xiao Qin naturally felt Hong Yan's hostility, but he didn't take it seriously. He just felt that it was unfair for the poor Xie Fei. After a thorough examination of Consort Xie's body, Xiao Qin confirmed that her vitals had stabilized and there were no abnormalities. He then used his primordial qi to wake her up. Before Consort Xie completely woke up, Xiao Qin specially instructed the other women, by the way, when Consort Xie wakes up later, don't mention anything about her past. Just pretend that no one knows about it. Xin Jingxian and the rest nodded in agreement. They looked at Xie Fei and their hearts were filled with sympathy for her. However, Hong Yan was a little surprised as she looked at Xiao Qin. She didn't expect this guy to be so meticulous. Could it be that he was pretending to be a lecher? Xiao Qin, Jingxian, Hongzhu? What happened? Why do I seem to have fallen asleep? After a while, Xie Fei let out a low moan and slowly opened her eyes. She swept her gaze over everyone present, a confused look on her face, as if she had no recollection of what had just happened. Hongzhu was stunned for a moment before he quickly explained, Senior Sister Xiao Fei, your old illness relapsed just now. You hugged Xiao Qin like a madman, kissed and touched him, and you almost pushed him down and started working. What? I actually did that? Xie Fei was so shocked that she couldn't close her mouth. Her face flushed red as she stammered, Then what happened? After that. Hongzhu chuckled as he glanced at Xiao Qin. He then replied unhurriedly, After that, it was fortunate that Xiao Qin was decent enough to stop you in time. He even treated you. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the two of you would have done some indecent things right there in front of everyone. Xie Fei hurriedly turned to look at Xiao Qin and said apologetically, Xiao Qin, I'm really sorry I've let you witness such a laughable scene. This is already an old illness of mine. Previously, when I was cultivating the charm technique, my mind was restless and I ended up suffering from cultivation deviation. I nearly lost my life and even ended up with this chronic illness. I'm really sorry. According to Hongzhu, I should be fine now, right? It's fine. Hongzhu has already told me about your situation, so I helped you treat it. Xiao Qin helped Xie Fei up and gave a simple answer. After Xie Fei stood up, Xiao Qin let go of her hand. After all, the two of them were not officially boyfriend and girlfriend. Xiao Qin didn't want to be too intimate with her as he felt a little awkward in his heart. After Xiao Qin let go of her hand, Xie Fei blankly grasped at the air for a moment before letting go, feeling a little disappointed. Xiao Qin didn't notice this scene and indifferently continued, As for your illness, I haven't completely cured it yet. I've only temporarily suppressed it. After all, this is your heart demon. As the saying goes, a heart disease needs medicine to cure it. You'll have to slowly adjust yourself in the future. Sooner or later you'll be able to recover. Oh, then thank you. Xie Fei put away her disappointed mood and nodded in agreement. Xie Fei also understood that Xiao Qin was deliberately keeping a distance from her. Although she was a little depressed, she had no intention of giving up. It was said that a woman chasing a man was separated by a thin layer of yarn. Xia Fei firmly believed that Xiao Chen would accept her sooner or later. You're welcome. It's nothing. Xiao Chen looked up at the sky and said with a smile, well, it's almost time. Let's go out and meet the two people first. I don't want them to get impatient waiting outside and start grumbling. After that, Xiao Chen removed the barrier around them and removed the camouflage. He held Xin Jingshuan's hand and strode out of the seclusion site. Hong Yan followed behind Xiao Chen and Xin Jingxian in confusion. She stared at Xiao Chen's calm back in confusion. She felt that this so-called lecher was becoming more and more difficult to understand. When Xia Fei was acting up, this guy actually didn't take advantage of her. Could it be that he was really unmoved by Xia Fei's temptation? No. It must be because there were too many people present at the time. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, Xiao Chen didn't dare to act too presumptuously, so he pretended to be a good person to confuse others. That Xin Jingxian must have been tricked by him in this way. This person is really too bad. Hong Zhu and Xia Fei walked at the very back. The two women tacitly looked at each other, their eyes seemingly hiding a very deep meaning. Seeing that Xiao Chen had walked far away, Hong Zhu said in a low voice, Senior Sister Xiao Chen, your acting skills are quite good. You clearly remember what you did, yet you deliberately pretended to have amnesia. Even Xiao Chen was tricked by you. Brilliant. Truly brilliant. Chapter 1235. Little Hong Zhu, you even dare to tease your senior sister? Xia Fei lightly knocked on Hong Zhu's head and pouted. "Oh, don't hit me. If I hadn't helped you out, you might have been even more embarrassed." Hong Zhu protested with a grin. Xia Fei smiled faintly as she stared at Xiao Chen's back with a gentle expression. Although he wasn't very imposing, he was still standing proudly and said, "In fact, I really should thank you because I don't know how to explain that matter to Xiao Chen. Fortunately, you took the initiative to explain it to him, otherwise he would definitely think of me as a female sex fiend." Don't worry. Xiao Chen isn't the kind of narrow-minded person who can't distinguish right from wrong, and he won't dislike you because of this matter. I'm guessing that he will accept you sooner or later. You just have to wait to marry into the Xiao family and accompany his wives. Hong Zhu squinted his eyes and consoled. But Xia Fei suddenly thought of something and frowned, hesitating to speak. What's wrong? Hong Zhu asked in confusion when he saw Xia Fei's strange expression. It's nothing. It's just that you missed something just now. Xia Fei blushed and hesitated for a moment before whispering, Actually, I've never done that with a man. Ah? Hong Zhu was taken aback. He focused his mind and thought for a moment before saying in a soft voice, I know that you and your senior brother didn't make love, but after you suffered cultivation deviation, you developed a mental barrier and went to the secular world, so I don't know what happened after that. Then, when you had an attack, what did you do? Cough cough, you just said that as long as I can release it, my heart demon will be alleviated. Although Xia Fei was a little embarrassed, she didn't hide anything from her closest junior sister and explained in a low voice, if you want to release it, you don't necessarily need a man, you can solve it yourself. So that's how it is. Hong Zhu suddenly understood. No wonder Xia Fei had said that she had never been with a man even though she had clearly lost her virginity. It turned out that she was referring to himself. Thinking of this, Hong Zhu patted the back of Xia Fei's hand and comforted her with a smile. Don't worry, I'll find a chance in the future to help you talk to Xiao Chen. I'll make sure he doesn't have a knot in his heart. It seems that you know Xiao Chen quite well. After revealing her most private secret, Xia Fei suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. She pulled Hong Zhu's hand and teased him with a smile. How is it? Little Hong Zhu, do you want to consider marrying Xiao Chen together with Big Sister? This way we can stay together every day and go wherever we want to play. Sigh. Senior Martial Sister Xiao Fei, you are too optimistic. The cultivation world's sacrificial ceremony is about to begin. At that time, we will all become the sacrificial offerings of our clans. Whether we can come back alive is still unknown. Let's wait until we are truly safe and sound. Although Hong Zhu was somewhat tempted, he still sighed in the end. TSK, don't think I don't know what you're thinking. With your temper, you definitely won't willingly become a sacrificial offering. I'm guessing that you've already thought of a way to escape, right? Xia Fei took a deep look at Hong Zhu. She knew this junior martial sister of hers quite well after spending so many years together. Hong Zhu chuckled and whispered, I can hide it from others but I can't escape your eyes. In fact, I want to take advantage of the fact that before the sacrificial ceremony begins. Just as he was about to reveal his entire plan, Hong Zhu suddenly saw Song Qingshu walking towards them from not far away. He hurriedly stopped himself and gave CFA a meaningful look, whispering, "Forget it, I'll find a chance to discuss it with you later. For now we should first deal with this silly boy from the Song family." CFA nodded slightly. She could more or less guess what Hongzhu planned to do next. It was nothing more than finding a place to hide and try not to be found by the Hong family as much as possible. Once the storm of the sacrificial ceremony was over, they could then consider what to do next. However, CFA felt that although Hongzhu's plan was good, the Hong family was a member of the immortal cultivation sect and had eyes all over Wuxia. It would not be that easy for her to hide. "Hongzhu, CFA, are the two of you all right?" Song Qingshu walked up to them and asked with a concerned look on his face. Song Qingshu finally felt a lot more at ease when he sensed the aura of a martial supremacy coming from Hongzhu's body. After all, it had been too long since Hongzhu and Hong Yan had made their breakthroughs, so he was worried that something might have happened to them. "Of course we're fine. Do you want something to happen to us? Do you even know how to talk?" Hongzhu rolled his eyes and grumbled with a pout. "Oh, no, that's not what I meant." Although Song Qingshu was usually very arrogant, he was completely helpless in front of the little she-devil, Hongzhu. He hurriedly and carefully explained, "I saw that Hong Yan seemed to be a little absent-minded when she came out. Third young Master Hong asked her a few questions, but she didn't answer them. That's why I specifically came to find you to understand more about the situation. Hong Yan usually has this kind of muddle-headed personality. What's so strange about that? Just ignore her." Hongzhu shrugged and glared at Hong Yan from afar, secretly warning her not to say anything that she should not say. "I see. Fortunately, all of you have advanced to the martial supremacy realm. This trip to the mystery realm was not in vain." Song Qingshu nodded and did not think too much about it. Hongzhu could not be bothered to talk nonsense with Song Qingshu. He looked past him and said to Xiaoqin, "Little brother Xiaoqin, do you have any other matters to attend to? If not, why don't you come with us to the Hong residence for a few days? Let big sister treat you well. I believe you have a lot to talk about with your goddess Shen, right?" Xiaoqin pondered for a moment before he said, "Nothing important, but..." Before Xiaoqin could finish speaking, Song Qingshu suddenly had a brainwave. He suddenly remembered what he and third young Master Hong were discussing outside, so he hurriedly said, "Hongzhu is right. Since little brother Xiao has helped us so much, we should also properly thank you. Moreover, we might need your help in the future. We hope that little brother Xiao can do us the honor and come to the Hong residence and Song residence for a chat." "Who's your brother? Don't randomly call people relatives over there." Xiaoqin did not hide his disdain for Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu had been given the cold shoulder. He wanted to flare up, but Hongzhu was glaring at him like a tiger watching its prey. He could only resentfully turn his head and pretend that he had not heard anything. Xiaoqin did not object to going to the Hong residence as a guest. However, even if he wanted to go, he had to first pick up Jia Muzin, Qing Menjing, and the others. Chapter 1236. However, Xiaoqin had another question, so he turned to Hongzhu and asked, "That's right, little Hongzhu, I heard you mention something about a sacrificial ceremony in the cultivation world. What is that?" When CFA and Hongzhu heard Xiaoqin's question, they both stared blankly for a moment. CFA's face, which had already returned to normal, suddenly turned red again, and she subconsciously took a step back. "You heard it?" When she and Hongzhu were whispering about the sacrificial ceremony in the cultivation world, he had actually heard it. This meant that the little secret that she had told Hongzhu before had also been heard by Xiaoqin without missing a single word. CFA's first reaction was to feel shy, but after she took a step back, she came to her senses. What was she feeling shy about? She had originally wanted to tell him these words, but now Hongzhu didn't need to find an opportunity to repeat them. Hongzhu was in a daze because she suddenly remembered that Xinjingxian was also going to participate in the sacrificial ceremony. For a moment she didn't know how to explain it to Xiaoqin, so she could only stammer and vaguely say, "It's nothing, it's just a ceremony to open the cultivation world." Hongzhu didn't dare to tell the truth to Xiaoqin, because she knew this guy's temperament very well. If he knew the ins and outs of this matter, then he would definitely not let Xinjingxian take the risk. It was very likely that he would even stop Lu Shuangshuang and Ke Lin. If that happened, he would forcibly stop the sacrificial ceremony. In this way, Xiaoqin would inevitably offend those people from the cultivation sects, which would cause him a lot of trouble. But if she didn't explain it in detail, Xiaoqin was not a fool and would certainly ask for the details. When that time came, how could she cover up this lie? Roar, Just as Hongzhu was hesitating, gusts of cold wind suddenly began to blow around his seclusion area, and a deafening roar came from the nearby forest, as if it was coming from some terrifying and ferocious beast. Everyone, who had their own thoughts, immediately became alert and looked in the direction of the roar. They heard the rustling of leaves, and not long after, a pair of green things appeared in the depths of the forest. They kept moving toward them, and they seemed to be moving very fast. They were like two will-o'-the-wisps that were getting bigger and bigger, and they were particularly eye-catching in the dark forest. Xiaochen, what is that? Xin Jingxian was scared out of her wits. She grabbed Xiaochen's hand tightly and unconsciously took a step back, hiding behind Xiaochen. I think it should be a wandering beast, and it's quite strong. Xiaochen's voice was a little solemn. He took a step forward and blocked Xin Jingshuan's petite body. Even Xiaochen found the roar a little ear-piercing. Therefore, he immediately determined that the beast was not weak, and it was at least on equal footing with him. But shouldn't the strength of all living beings be suppressed in the venerable secret realm? Why could this beast release its full strength? Could it be that there was something special about it? The rest of them also looked a little pale. A few girls took small steps back, while Song Qingshu and third young Master Hong stared at the forest, extremely nervous and alert. Song Qingshu and third young Master Hong could clearly feel that the thing running in the forest should be stronger than them. Swoosh! Just as everyone was feeling anxious and guessing, they saw a snow-white beast suddenly rushing out of the forest. Xiaochen looked over and saw that the beast had a lion's face, slender limbs covered in thick white fur, a thick and long tail hanging on the ground, and a pair of eyes that were like two copper bells, glowing with a faint green light. It stared at Xiaochen and the others, looking extremely terrifying. What the hell is this? What the hell is this? Xiaochen frowned. He felt a little helpless as he looked at the beast that was much taller than him and had never seen before. Roar! Before anyone could react, the white beast roared angrily and suddenly revealed the powerful aura of a level 7 honored realm. Then it raised its front hooves and smashed them heavily on the ground. With a muffled dong sound, a shockwave visible to the naked eye spread rapidly along the ground with the gigantic beast at the center, attacking Xiaochen and the others. Everyone be careful. Xiaochen immediately shouted a warning. He grabbed Xin Jingxian, who was behind him, tightly. Then he felt the ground beneath his feet shake, as if he had encountered a strong earthquake. It felt like the mountains were collapsing and the earth was cracking. Fortunately, Xiaochen was already an expert at the perfected original infant stage, and he was supporting Xin Jingxian, so the two of them were not affected. Although they swayed left and right, they still stood firm in the end. However, the others were not so lucky. They were all waving their arms and legs, screaming in fear, and fell to the ground one after another. It was a rather embarrassing scene. As for the white beast, it did not move, and its pair of green eyes swept across everyone present. In Xiaochen's opinion, it was as if it had a mind of its own, and by observing everyone, it was sifting through something. Before everyone could stand up, the white beast exhaled a cloud of white gas from its nose and suddenly locked onto Hongzhu and Hong Yan as its targets, and rushed toward them. Bastard, you're courting death. Song Qingshu was shocked and she was the first to jump up. Although she knew that the white beast was stronger than her, she did not hesitate to activate her mental cultivation method, and displayed the cultivation of a level 5 martial honor. She swung her palm at the beast with all her might. Seeing this, third young Master Hong did not dare to be negligent. After all, he knew that Song Qingshu might not be able to kill the white beast by herself. Therefore he also flew over and punched it hard. Bang! As third young Master Hong was closer to the white beast, his punch arrived first and landed on the beast's head first. However, it did not affect the white beast at all. Instead, he howled, feeling that the bones in his fingers were about to break. On the other side, Song Qingshu's palm wind arrived and slammed heavily on the giant beast's body. However, the result was not much different from third young Master Hong's. It was like hitting cotton, and the giant white beast did not stop at all. The harassment of the two ants not only failed to stop the white beast, but also angered it. The white beast suddenly shook its head, and third young Master Hong, who was caught off guard, was sent flying and fell heavily on the ground not far away. Blood immediately flowed out of his nose and mouth, and he fainted without a sound. Third young Master Hong. Song Qingshu was shocked, and she quickly ran toward third young Master Hong. However, she had only taken a few steps when she suddenly heard an ear-piercing sound behind her. Chapter 1237. Alarms went off in Song Qingshu's heart. He quickly turned his head to look and saw that the white beast was waving its thick and long tail. Like a whip, it drew a strange arc in the air and lashed at him. Motherf asterisk cur. Song Qingshu was both shocked and enraged. He cursed under his breath and hurriedly crouched down. The tail whizzed past his head. Song Qingshu breathed a long sigh of relief after narrowly avoiding the fatal blow. Just as he was secretly rejoicing in his luck, the familiar sound of something tearing through the air rang out behind him once again. Song Qingshu's expression changed greatly. He had never imagined that the white beast's tail would be so agile. He had just raised his body, and before he could even react, the beast's thick tail had already bound his body. Not only had the white beast bound Song Qingshu, but its tail was also tightening around him. Song Qingshu felt as if he had been entangled by a giant python. No matter how hard he struggled, it was useless. Even if he exhausted all his strength, he would not be able to break free from the fate of being bound. Crack. Not long after, the clear sound of bones breaking was heard. Song Qingshu's vision went black and he immediately lost consciousness. His head drooped weakly. It could only be said that the white beast had no intention of taking third young Master Hong and Song Qingshu's lives. After knocking them out, it released its tail and tossed Song Qingshu aside. Then it took a step forward again and slowly approached Hongzhu and Hong Yen. Hong Yen and Hongzhu's faces were deathly pale. They stumbled back step by step, unable to muster up any will to resist. Just as the white beast was about to touch the two women, a figure suddenly flashed out and blocked its path. Although I don't know what you're trying to do, I advise you not to take another step forward. Otherwise, this young master will let you have a taste of being electrocuted until your bones turn white. The newcomer was none other than Xiao Chen. He shielded Shinjing Xian and the others behind him. He formed two electric balls with his hands and stared coldly at the giant white beast in front of him, warning sternly. Although Xiao Chen sensed that the beast in front of him only had the strength of a level 7 martial honor, he did not underestimate it at all. Even if he did not take into account the fact that it had easily killed 2 cultivators, Xiao Chen knew that it was an extraordinary creature based on the fact that the beast's level was not suppressed in the martial honor's secret realm. Perhaps the white beast understood Xiao Chen's words, or perhaps it was afraid of the electric ball in his hand. It immediately stopped in its tracks and stood a short distance away, facing off against Xiao Chen. Very well, since you know how powerful my Thunderball technique is, why don't you scram? Everyone here is under my protection, you don't have a chance. Xiao Chen saw that the white beast had stopped moving and was overjoyed in his heart. The women behind Xiao Chen all had different expressions when they heard his words. Shen Jingxian naturally looked at him with a gentle gaze. Although Xie Fei was afraid, she was also faintly happy. Hongzhu could not help but roll his eyes at the back of Xiao Chen's head. Only Hong Yen stomped her foot angrily, but she did not dare to protest at this time. However, Xiao Chen's threat did not work this time. The white beast did not retreat. Instead, it anxiously shifted its feet and continued to sweep its green eyes over Hong Yen and Hongzhu. Its eyes were filled with greed. What's wrong? You still won't leave, right? It seems that if I don't teach you a lesson, you won't give up today. Xiao Chen said fiercely when he saw that the white beast had no intention of leaving. He then pushed his hands forward and quickly threw 2 electric balls at it. Roar! The white beast let out a loud roar and did not seem to have any intention of dodging. Instead, it went straight to meet the 2 electric balls, one on the head and the other on the chest. 2 bolts of blue lightning immediately exploded on its body. Although it wasn't like when Xiao Chen smashed the Awakening Heaven sect's disciples, which caused them to be charred black and killed on the spot, it still had an obvious effect. The electric current flickered with blue light in the white fur of the huge beast, constantly shuttling back and forth. The white beast was obviously suffering from the electric currents and could not help but wail in pain. Its huge body trembled a little, but it still managed to hold on and did not collapse. Oh, I didn't expect you to be so resistant to lightning. Why don't you try 2 more? The corners of Xiao Chen's mouth drew a cold arc and he condensed 2 electric balls in his hands. He did not forget to taunt, "Don't worry, Xiao Chen is in a good mood today. I'll give these 2 to you for free. Enjoy them or else you won't get another chance like this." After saying that, Xiao Chen raised his hand and directly threw the 2 electric balls at the white beast without choosing an angle. However, this time the white beast did not resist. It had obviously realized that it was no match for Xiao Chen. When it saw the 2 electric balls flying at it again, its green eyes flashed with fear. It immediately turned around and fled into the depths of the forest. Shin Jingxian, Hongzhu, and the others saw the white beast turn around and flee. They all breathed a long sigh of relief and their originally nervous mood immediately relaxed. As for Xiao Qin, he still had a grave expression on his face as he watched the white beast flee. At this moment, not only did he not feel the joy of victory, but an ominous feeling welled up in his heart. This was because the seclusion point where Jiao Muzhen and Cheng Menjing were cultivating happened to be the direction in which the white beast was fleeing. Little Hong Zhu Jingxian, take Song Qingshu and third young master Hong away from here first. Xiao Qin turned around and quickly instructed, I must follow them immediately and eliminate this beast. Otherwise, Cheng Menjing and the others will be in danger. After giving a few simple instructions, Xiao Qin immediately used his movement technique to chase after them. He secretly prayed that Cheng Menjing and the others would obediently stay in the seclusion point after they finished consolidating their cultivation and would not run around. Ah, Menjing is here too. Xin Jingxian exclaimed. Why did Menjing also come to the venerable realm? With her insignificant strength, wouldn't it be very dangerous for her to stay here? As she worriedly watched Xiao Chen's figure quickly disappear into the fog, Xin Jingxian suddenly thought of something and immediately shouted, Xiao Chen, will you come back? Should we wait for you here? After shouting, Xin Jingxian waited for a while, but did not hear any response. Forget it, Jingxian. I reckon that Xiao Chen ran too quickly and can't hear us now. Hong Zhu comforted Xin Jingxian and patted her shoulder. In fact, she also wanted to know if Xiao Chen would come back. After all, Song Huawu and the others were still staying with the Hong family and were searching for Xiao Chen's whereabouts with Hong Ying. Chapter 1238. Heavens! Hong Zhu slapped his forehead and blamed himself with a vexed expression. I actually forgot to tell Xiao Chen about Song Huawu and the others. What should we do now? Are we really going to stay in this dangerous place and wait for him to return? Hong Zhu and Xin Jingxian looked at each other with conflicted expressions on their faces. Hong Yan, on the other hand, stood rooted to the spot with a perplexed look on her face. She did not utter a single word as the scene of Xiao Chen standing in front of her and chasing away the giant beast kept replaying in her mind. That Xiao Chen. What kind of person is he? Why is he willing to take the risk to protect everyone? If it's just to protect Xin Jingxian, then he only needs to escape with Xin Jingxian. Furthermore, according to Hong Zhu's observations, his strength does not seem to be that great. Hong Zhu could not sense how high his rank was at all. Apart from knowing a few strange spells, there was nothing special about him. Is he not afraid of death? Or does he have other motives? Hong Zhu, it looks like we have to leave this place as soon as possible. Just as the three of them were in a daze, a mature female voice sounded. CFA had already finished inspecting Song Qingshu and third young master Hong's injuries and was walking over with a grave expression. What's wrong? How are their injuries? Hong Zhu returned to his senses and asked apologetically. Actually, he should have been the one to do this. He had been too busy talking to Xin Jingxian just now and had forgotten about it. He had even needed CFA's help. CFA shook her head and said in a low voice, Song Qingshu has a few broken ribs, and third young master Hong's internal organs are severely damaged. Although I have already given them healing pills, I don't think it will have much of an effect. It's better to carry them out and treat them as soon as possible. Then Xiao Chen he. Xin Jingxian bit her lower lip and looked in the direction that Xiao Chen had left in. She had wanted to wait for Xiao Chen to return before leaving, but she did not expect the two of them to be so badly injured. She was too embarrassed to say anything. How about this? As for Xiao Chen. Hong Zhu hesitated for a moment, then comforted her. Since he was able to come to the venerable realm to cultivate, he should have stayed in the inner martial world for some time. It won't be difficult for him to find out about the existence of the Hong and Song families. I believe it won't be long before he takes the initiative to find us. Although Hong Zhu said so, in truth she had no idea whether Xiao Chen would actually come knocking on her door. But she really couldn't care so much right now. After all, a person's life was at stake. Everything else could only wait. Well, that's the only thing we can do now. CFA nodded in agreement. She looked around and nimbly rolled up her sleeves. While looking for materials, she said, Song Qingshu and Hong third young master's injuries are more serious. Moreover, they are both injured in their internal organs. We can't make too much vibration, otherwise it's very likely that their injuries will worsen. How about this? Let's first find some sturdy branches and make 2 simple stretchers. Then we'll use the stretchers to carry them out. Hong Zhu naturally did not have any objections and was just about to head off with CFA to look for the materials when he turned around and saw Hong Yan still standing there in a daze. He shouted, Hong Yen, don't just stand there in a daze. Hurry up and give us a hand. Okay. Hong Yen was startled by Hong Zhu's shout. She quickly returned to her senses and hurriedly agreed. She collected her thoughts and followed behind Hong Zhu. Since he could not figure out Xiao Chen's intentions, he could only put it aside for the time being. In any case, the two of them might not have a chance to meet in the future, so there was no point in thinking about the thoughts of a pervert. I'll help you as well. Xin Jingxian took another deep look in the direction that Xiao Chen had left in. Finally, she turned around and walked over to Hong Zhu and the others, joining them in picking up materials. Although Xin Jingxian very much wanted to catch up to Xiao Chen and reunite with Cheng Menjing, whom she had not seen for a long time, when she considered the terrible situation they were in and the dangerous environment of the Venerable Realm, she had no choice but to give up on this idea. Xin Jingxian secretly prayed in her heart that Xiao Chen would be able to find the Hong and Song families just as Hong Zhu had said. Otherwise, after the ceremony in the cultivation world, it was very likely that she would never see him again. On the other side, after chasing for a while, Xiao Chen was shocked to find that even though he was an expert at the nascent soul stage, he could not catch up to this white colossus at all. Furthermore, if it was not for the fact that this fellow would occasionally slow down, giving him a chance to catch up to it, he would have nearly lost it a few times. Xiao Chen did not believe this and quickened his pace once again. However, he was dumbfounded to find that the white colossus seemed to have increased its speed as well. In any case, it maintained a certain distance from him. Suddenly, a sense of defeat washed over him. Xiao Chen gloomily asked in his heart, "Elder Heaven Ancestor, what is this huge beast in front of us? Have you seen it before?" A base spiritual beast. The Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice carried a hint of sorrow as he lamented, "Kid, your luck is indeed not bad. This kind of base spiritual beast was extremely rare even in ancient times. I did not expect to see it in a place like this. But it's no wonder base spiritual beasts like to stay in places with abundant heaven and earth spiritual chi. The Venerable Realm just happens to provide a good living environment for it. It's actually a spiritual beast?" Xiao Chen said in astonishment. "I realize that its speed is quite fast. If it wasn't for the fact that I have the strength of a full foundation original infant stage cultivator and have enough chi to support me, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to run over it." Just as Xiao Chen spoke, the base spiritual beast seemed to have increased its speed. Xiao Chen did not dare to delay and immediately took a deep breath and quickened his pace to catch up. "Ehe, Xiao Chen, have you lost your mind from chasing it?" The Elder Heaven Ancestor could not help but laugh. He went straight to the point and said, "Can't you see that it is not using its full strength? If it wasn't purposely trying to lead you to a certain place, I'm afraid it would have lost you long ago. Would it still be able to keep up with you like it is doing now?" Now that you mention it, that does seem to be the case. It looks like this base spiritual beast is purposely suppressing its strength. After the Elder Heaven Ancestor's reminder, a light bulb went off in Xiao Chen's mind and he realized that it was indeed the case. During the chase, the base spiritual beast would occasionally turn its head around to look at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen initially thought that it was trying to see if it could shake him off. But now, it seemed that the base spiritual beast was trying to determine if he could keep up with it or not. Sometimes, when he was a little further behind, the base spiritual beast would slow down as if it was waiting for him. Chapter 1239. I never thought that this spiritual beast would be so intelligent. But why did I feel that it was only at the 7th level of the martial honor realm? Xiao Chen asked doubtfully, did I sense it wrong? But it really couldn't withstand the attack of my electric ball technique. You're right, it's only at the 7th level of the martial honor realm. This can't be hidden in the eyes of cultivators. It's just that it's known for its speed, which is why you couldn't catch up to it. The Elder Heaven Ancestor explained. I see then. Xiao Chen nodded. Just as he was about to ask more questions, the Elder Heaven Ancestor seemed to know what he was going to ask and immediately answered, this base spiritual beast likes to get close to people with spiritual chi. According to my observations, it originally wanted to take Hong Zhu and Hong Yen away. But after you displayed your skills, it changed its mind. I'm guessing that it realized that the spiritual chi in your body is more abundant than that of the two girls, so it chose you instead. Oh, but why did it lead me to Cheng Menjing's place of seclusion? Isn't it afraid that I'll kill it directly? Xiao Chen scratched his head, still a little confused. He couldn't figure out what the base spiritual beast was up to. I don't know about that. You can ask it yourself when you catch it. The Elder Heaven Ancestor smiled and said, when this kind of spiritual beast cultivates to the martial honor realm, it basically has intelligence and can speak the human language. It's just that it hasn't learned it systematically, so its pronunciation isn't very accurate. Damn. It can speak the human language? It's already strange enough that it can speak, why does it have an accent? Xiaoqin shook his head, feeling that his view of the world had been changed. The Elder Heaven Ancestor looked ahead and immediately reminded him, Xiaoqin, stop chatting. Look, the base spiritual beast has changed direction. It doesn't seem to be heading for Qing Menjing and the others. Be careful. Holy *T. Xiaoqin wanted to know more about the base spirit beast, but after hearing the words of the Elder Heaven Ancestor, he quickly looked over and found that the base spirit beast had indeed changed its route and was running deeper into the forest. Moreover, it was running faster and faster, and gradually, it was out of sight. Xiaoqin did not dare to ask any more questions. It seemed that he would not be able to catch up with them with his feet. He quickly summoned his flying sword and stepped on it, tearing through the air to chase after them. After entering the forest, Xiaoqin only felt that the fog in front of him was getting thicker and thicker. Originally, he could see more than 100 feet away, but gradually he could only see around him. Moreover, the surrounding scenery was even more gloomy and terrifying than before. Strange branches of withered trees grew out from the sides, looking like bony arms waving towards the sky. It was extremely terrifying. Although he did not know where he was at the moment, Xiaoqin still relied on the powerful power of his divine sense to follow closely behind the Baizhe spiritual beast. Xiaoqin, there's danger ahead. Get out of the way. Just as Xiaoqin was about to reach the Baizhe spiritual beast, the Elder Heaven Ancestor suddenly warned him in his divine sense. Boom. The Elder Heaven Ancestor's warning was a little too late. Just as Xiaoqin was alerted, he suddenly saw a huge beam of white light flash in front of him, almost blinding his eyes. Then, a lightning bolt as thick as a bucket fell from the sky without warning, directly striking his position. Although the moment the Elder Heaven Ancestor warned him of danger, Xiaoqin immediately revolved his Yuan Qi to increase his defense. But against that lightning bolt, his pitiful defense was almost useless. Ah! Xiaoqin, who was struck head-on, could not help but let out a blood-curdling scream. He immediately lost his balance and fell from the flying sword. Only a series of crackling sounds could be heard. Who knew how many branches he broke before he fell heavily to the ground? Xiaoqin only felt an unparalleled pain, then he had an intimate contact with the ground. He vomited a few mouthfuls of blood and soon fainted, lying there motionless. Xiaoqin's hair had already been completely scorched and curled, looking like an afro. The blue lightning had not disappeared yet, it was still jumping and burning on his body. There were even a few places where sparks had already appeared, and there was even a faint, zzz sound of electric current. The strange thing was that the Baizhe spiritual beast had led Xiaoqin here, and after he was struck by lightning, there was no trace of him. No one knew where he went. When he regained consciousness again, Xiaoqin found himself in the sea of divine knowledge. The Elder Heaven Ancestor beside him kept shaking his head and sighing, and the floating underworld fire and Xiaoma were also worried. Seeing this scene, Xiaoqin immediately realized the seriousness of the problem. He forcibly suppressed the uneasiness in his heart and asked carefully, Elder Heaven Ancestor, was I suddenly struck by lightning? What is the origin of that lightning? With my current strength, even if I was struck by lightning, I wouldn't be so seriously injured, right? What the hell is going on? If I'm not wrong, you should have been struck by one of the 5 elements calamities, the thunder calamity. The Elder Heaven Ancestor said with a dignified expression. This kind of lightning strike is different from ordinary lightning. The damage caused by it, not to mention your strength at the peak of the nascent soul stage, even a master at the profound ascending stage may not be able to withstand it. So powerful. According to what you said, I'm not dead now, am I? Xiaoqin was a little dumbfounded, and an ominous feeling welled up in his heart. Isn't this too ridiculous? How could I be struck to death by lightning? How could cultivators who claim to be omnipotent and awesome, be so unreliable? How do I say this? In theory you're not dead yet, but you're not far from death. The Elder Heaven Ancestor hesitated for a moment and frankly said. This answer made Xiaoqin even more depressed. He didn't expect the 5 elements calamity in the venerable realm to be so powerful that even cultivators couldn't resist it. No wonder when Chou Wanqian mentioned the 5 elements calamity, he put on a face as if he didn't believe that he couldn't kill them. It turned out that it was true. Elder Heaven Ancestor, you'd better finish what you want to say in one go. What do you mean by not far from death? Why do I sound so nervous? Xiao Chen said with a bitter face. It's like this: after you were struck by lightning, the lightning struck your body, and now your body's automatic recovery mechanism is constantly fighting against it. Elder Sky explained helplessly. However, this rate of recovery is far from being able to keep up with the continuous damage caused by the lightning strike. Therefore, your body is currently in a process of continuous deterioration, which means that you are not far from death. Damn. Then what am I doing in this sea of consciousness? Xiao Chen put his hand on his forehead and suddenly looked at the Elder Heaven Ancestor. Elder Heaven Ancestor, you're not thinking of... Chapter 1240. That's the only way. The Elder Heaven Ancestor nodded and said, your body is about to be destroyed. So, I have to separate your soul from your body. Then, I have to find a way to get you a new body. Otherwise you will vanish into thin air. No way. Is there no other way? Xiao Chen's face fell and he complained incessantly, I quite like my current appearance. Besides, Qing Menjing and the others only recognize my face. If I were to possess someone else's body and interact with them, it would feel a little weird. Xiao Chen kept whining in his heart. It was not easy for him to reach the peak of the nascent soul realm. Did he have to find a new body to possess and start his cultivation from the beginning? Then wouldn't all the hard work he had done be in vain? Look at the situation and you're still thinking about these useless things. The Elder Heaven Ancestor didn't know whether to laugh or cry, shaking his head. He thought for a while and then sighed, unless someone can help you share a part of the lightning strike's energy, relieving the pressure on your body's recovery mechanism and suppressing the lightning damage. Then you can slowly heal your internal injuries. But I'm lying down and can't move at this moment. Where am I going to find someone? Xiao Chen immediately hung his head dejectedly. Suddenly, he raised his head and asked in bewilderment, that's right, I actually have another question. Elder Heaven Ancestor, it was you, Nethery, and Xiaoma who helped me share the damage, wasn't it? Why didn't it work this time? Xiao Chen suddenly recalled that whenever he received a fatal blow in the past, it was the Elder Heaven Ancestor and the others who helped him. When it was serious, they would be beaten into a dormant state just like the time when he was in the Kuei Mountain sect. But why was it that he was about to die this time, while they were all fine and unscathed? Did they slack off? Kid, what are you thinking? Naturally, Elder Sky knew what Xiao Chen was thinking. He shook his body in agitation and reprimanded, if we didn't help you absorb the damage, you would have died a long time ago. How could you still be standing here talking? It's just that in order to tell you these complicated things, we didn't do our best, so we didn't sleep. You heartless little thing, open your eyes wide and take a good look. Xiao Chen focused his gaze and discovered that the primordial spirits of the Elder Heaven Ancestor, the flames of the underworld, and a little demon were faintly discernible, floating like gossamer threads. They were in a very unstable state and looked like they could disappear at any time. Xiao Chen was a little embarrassed. He touched his nose and apologized, Elder Heaven Ancestor, I'm really sorry, I didn't see clearly before. Don't talk. Before Xiao Chen could finish speaking, the Elder Heaven Ancestor suddenly made a shushing gesture and said vigilantly, that base spirit beast seems to be back. Because the Elder Heaven Ancestor's primordial spirit was too exhausted, he could only release a small range of his divine sense to observe the movements around him. Just now he discovered that something was wrong. Sure enough, as soon as the Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice fell, a rustling sound came from the grass not far away. A pair of green eyes suddenly appeared and stared at Xiao Chen's body. After a while, it carefully moved and slowly approached Xiao Chen's position. Whoosh! The base spirit beast walked out of the grass and came to Xiao Chen's side. It looked down at him from above and complained angrily, useless Xiao Si. You have a body full of negative energy but in the end you shit after being struck by lightning. What a waste of my time. Listening to the base spirit beast's unclear words, Xiao Chen, who was staying in the sea of consciousness, couldn't help but feel angry and amused. He couldn't understand why this fellow lured him here to be struck by lightning. Was it just to watch him make a fool of himself? Something doesn't seem right. The base spirit beast circled around Xiao Chen a few more times and suddenly discovered that he was still breathing weakly. Seeing that Xiao Chen's body was still flashing with blue lightning, his body was charred in several places, and his hair was curled as if it had been burned by ions, the base spirit beast said to itself in surprise, this fellow doesn't seem to have shit yet? Why is he back to Xiao Si? Little Nethery, little demon, and how much strength can you use now? Xiao Chen had a brainwave when he heard the base spiritual beast answering its own questions. He suddenly thought of a good idea that might be able to solve the current unfavorable situation. However, he still needed the help of the flame of the underworld and Little Demon N. Reporting to Master, Little Nethery and I currently have less than 20% of our strength left. I'm afraid we can't fight against that spirit beast. And Little Demon reported honestly with a bitter face. I don't need you to fight against it, you just need to do this. Xiaochen perfected the idea from beginning to end. The corners of his mouth raised slightly, and he waved his hand confidently to let the two primordial spirits come to his side. Then he whispered a few words to them and revealed his entire plan. Will this really work? That spirit beast has the strength of the venerable realm after all. Master, your method is too childish, isn't it? After listening to Xiaochen's idea, and Little Demon frowned and couldn't help but raise his doubts. The Elder Heaven Ancestor naturally heard Xiaochen's plan and also rolled his eyes. However, he was too lazy to pay attention to it. After all, he had no other better way at the moment, so he could only let Xiaochen try it as a last resort. Whether it's childish or not, we have to give it a try. It's a matter of life and death now. Unless you have a better suggestion, do as I say. Xiaochen ignored Little Demon's doubts and gave the order with a sullen face. Yes. And Little Demon and the flame of the underworld looked at each other. Naturally, they did not dare to have any objections and nodded in agreement. Even if Xiaochen was in a half-dead state and was about to die, he was still their master. They could have doubts, but it was absolutely impossible for them to resist. The base spiritual beast circled around Xiaochen for a while. When it saw that his skin and flesh were gradually charred black and his condition was getting worse, it reckoned that he wouldn't be able to live for much longer. It snorted and turned around to leave, planning to look for other substitutes. Hee. Base spirit beast had not gone far when it suddenly heard a creepy strange laughter coming from behind it. It was startled and almost stamped its hooves. In its shock, it turned around to take a look and discovered that a black mist was slowly rising from Xiaochen's body. What the hell is this? Out of curiosity, base spirit beast turned around and walked toward Xiaochen. Its green eyes stared straight at the black mist. It watched as the black mist gradually turned into a human figure, and its eyes, ears, mouth, nose, and limbs were spewing out blue-purple flames. The scene was very strange. Chapter 1241. TSK. You little bastard, you actually hurt my master. You've got guts. The humanoid black fog let out a strange sharp laughter and bared its fangs and claws at the base spiritual beast. The thing that emerged from Xiaochen's body was the combination of Xiaoma and the flames of the underworld. As they were not sure if they were a match for the base spiritual beast, they only used the method of intimidation for the time being and did not take the initiative to attack immediately. *CK. I didn't expect this kid's body to have such a strange thing. The base spiritual beast stared at the black fog with its big eyes and rubbed its hooves back and forth on the same spot. Under the situation where it could not figure out the opponent's strength, the base spiritual beast did not dare to attack rashly. Moreover, the humanoid black fog's crooked appearance did look a little scary. Little bastard, don't even think about leaving today. I'll use your flesh and blood to pay for my master's life. Seeing that the base spiritual beast was indeed intimidated, the bluish-purple flames on its body immediately sprayed out more vigorously. Its erratic figure suddenly flashed and quickly rushed toward the base spiritual beast. Roar! The base spiritual beast first took a small step back, then shook its body and revealed the strength of a 7th-level martial honor. It roared angrily and jumped up with its huge body. It waved its thick claws and slashed at Xiaoma's body. However, just as the base spiritual beast's claws were about to touch Xiaoma, it heard a swoosh sound and its claws immediately fell into thin air. Xiaoma had disappeared into thin air and disappeared without a trace before its eyes. What the *CK? What's with ya? Don't tell me you're just trying to scare Silver with your brute strength? The base spiritual beast's attack missed and it landed heavily on the ground helplessly. It looked around the empty forest in confusion and cursed loudly. TSK. Little bastard, don't be happy too early. And Little Demon's eerie and terrifying laughter sounded again, but this time it was not just one voice, but dozens of different voices in the air at the same time. Baizhe was stunned for a moment. It immediately raised its head to look at the sky and saw countless human-shaped black mists floating in midair. They were surrounding it, and each of them was like the black mist from before, spitting out bluish-purple flames from all over their bodies. This scene was even stranger than before. Insignificant skill. The Bai Zhe spirit beast thought that it was an illusion created by the humanoid black fog. It growled in disdain, and its eyes suddenly burst out with green light. It scanned the air with rapt attention, trying to distinguish which one was in Xiaoma's real body. Despite that, Bai Zhe was a little puzzled after it scanned through the tens of black shadows. It kicked its hooves and remarked hatefully, "Looks like a monster like you still has some tricks up your sleeves. They're all real. TSK, cut the crap. Since you've injured my master, you can go and die." As soon as the Bai Zhe spirit beast finished speaking, dozens of humanoid black mists descended at the same time. They said the same thing while attacking it from different angles. Clouds of black mist mixed with bluish-purple flames kept shuttling around, surrounding the Bai Zhe spirit beast in the center. The scene was extremely spectacular. Roar, the Bai Zhe spirit beast was not afraid at all. Instead, it let out an excited roar. Looking at the bluish-purple flames that were surging from all directions, it moved its huge body to dodge left and right, twisting and turning, looking quite agile. Not only did it dodge the flame attack, but it also raised its two meaty claws in front of it and waved them at the attacking humanoid black mist, trying to kill them one by one. However, what made Bai Zhe spirit beast feel strange was that every time it successfully tore a combination, it would immediately split into two combinations and continue to attack it. Although the black fog did not cause any substantial damage to the Bai's beast, it was gradually running out of stamina after a few rounds. That being said, it did not panic. Instead, it retreated as it fought, slowly moving in the opposite direction in an attempt to sneak away from the battle. Crack. As it retreated, it suddenly heard the crisp sound of bones breaking. The Bai Zhe spirit beast felt as if its hind leg had stepped on something. However, before it could think about it carefully, a strong electric current traveled along its hind leg and instantly entered its body, almost causing it to pee. Roar, the Bai Zhe spirit beast could not help but let out a cry. It turned its head with difficulty and saw that its hind leg had stepped on Xiao Chen's wrist without any deviation. The electric current that remained in Xiao Chen's body was now surging into its body at an extremely fast speed. At that moment, the Bai Zhe spirit beast finally understood why the humanoid black mist was attacking it. However, it was too late. Its hind leg was firmly attached to Xiao Chen's wrist by the electric current and it could not pull it back even if it wanted to. As more and more electric current surged into its body, the Bai Zhe spirit beast did not even have the strength to cry out. It gradually fell limply to the ground and lay next to Xiao Chen, twitching non-stop. Its snow-white fur was stained with dead leaves and the dust on the ground. It looked very pitiful. Due to the continuous damage caused by the electric current, the Bai Zhe spirit beast had already absorbed a portion of it. Xiao Chen's injuries were finally alleviated. The powerful recovery mechanism was also operating more smoothly. The burnt parts of his body were finally gradually recovering to their original state. Elder Heaven Ancestor, how is it? My idea wasn't bad, right? Since the electric current has been diverted, can I continue to use this body? Seeing that the burnt parts of his body were slowly recovering to white, Xiao Chen in his sea of consciousness was very pleased. He asked the Elder Heaven Ancestor with a grin. Not bad indeed. You really have a lot of clever ideas, kid. The Elder Heaven Ancestor was not stingy with his praise. However, before Xiao Chen could speak, he added, "But don't be too happy too early. This matter is not over yet." What do you mean not over yet? Don't tell me there's going to be more lightning strikes? Xiao Chen was instantly shocked. If he was struck by lightning again, he would really be finished. That's not it. The Elder Heaven Ancestor shook his head and solemnly instructed, "I've already checked your condition. Although your body has recovered by about 30% to 40%, the injuries were too severe. Even your strength has regressed a lot. Once you've taken over your body, remember to immediately use your vitality to speed up the recovery of the damaged parts so that it doesn't cause a second injury." Oh, so that's how it is. I understand now. Xiao Chen nodded in understanding. He closed his eyes and circulated his mental cultivation method. Gradually, his primordial spirit and body became one. What the F***ck? As soon as he took over his body, Xiao Chen blurted out a curse. Chapter 1242. The moment Xiao Chen took over his body, he felt his meridians suddenly convulse violently. His internal organs were in turmoil and he almost couldn't catch his breath. It turned out that although the lightning on the surface of Xiao Chen's body had been guided out, there was still a lot of electricity left in his body. It was shuttling through his meridians and constantly stimulating his internal organs, which was why such a situation occurred. The twitching feeling was thousands of times stronger than the usual electric shock. It almost made Xiao Qin, who had just woken up, faint again. He gritted his teeth and endured the pain. He immediately mobilized his yuan qi, wanting to disperse the electric current in his body. However, what surprised Xiao Qin was that every time his yuan qi was about to touch the electric current, the traces of lightning would suddenly disappear without a trace. Not long after, it would drill out from another place. Xiao Qin tried a few times, but he was unable to capture those electric currents. It was as if they had a mind of their own, continuously playing a game of hide and seek in his meridians. On the contrary, it caused Xiao Qin's body to twitch from the electricity. That kind of numb, itchy and painful feeling made him feel extremely uncomfortable. Ku, I don't believe I can't deal with you. The more Xiao Qin chased, the angrier he got. He cursed angrily and mobilized all the remaining yuan qi in his body. It gathered towards the electric current from all directions and drove it into his dantian. He planned to destroy it all at once. The electric current was chased by the yuan qi and had nowhere to escape. It could only gradually gather in his dantian. Countless tiny electric currents mixed with each other and gradually fused into an egg-sized sphere in Xiao Qin's dantian. Its body was shining with a silvery white light. Although he was curious about this silvery white sphere, Xiao Qin knew that it was not a suitable time to observe it. He continued to mobilize his yuan qi and wrapped it around the sphere. Then he tried to slowly devour it. It was unknown whether it was the final radiance of a setting sun or a desperate attempt. The silvery white sphere was unwilling to be eroded by the yuan qi and was struggling to resist. However, it was just a small ball of lightning after all. In the face of the powerful yuan qi attack, the silver white ball finally lost its luster, and its size became smaller and smaller. It looked like it was about to be completely devoured. Watching the small ball gradually disappear, Xiao Qin let out a sigh of relief. He was extremely glad that he had escaped death. But at this moment, the silver white sphere that had collapsed to the size of a grain of rice suddenly emitted an incomparably resplendent and dazzling light. Then, a violent explosion burst out from the inside, completely blowing up the vitality around it. Ah! An intense pain instantly spread from his dantian to his whole body. Xiao Qin let out a miserable howl and almost fainted from the pain. Fortunately, Xiao Qin was at the peak of the original infant stage, and his dantian was as hard as steel and cement. Otherwise, he would have been crippled by the explosion. Fortunately, the pain came and went quickly. It didn't take long for Xiao Qin to recover from the pain. However, before Xiao Qin could do anything, he suddenly felt that in his dantian that had been blown up, a thick wave of yuan qi was born out of thin air. This wave of essence was even more robust and pure than the essence that Xiao Qin had circulated previously. Furthermore, after it left his dantian, that wave of essence immediately split into countless strands of essence that were as thin as hair. They followed his meridians and madly circulated a great cycle. From a boiling and whistling sound, they gradually calmed down and then gathered in his dantian once again. Boom! Just when all the yuan qi was gathered together, Xiao Qin heard a familiar roar in his body. The barrier of the profound ascension stage was instantly broken, and he was promoted from the peak of the original infant stage to the first level of the profound ascension stage. Leveled up? Xiao Qin opened his eyes in astonishment, looked at his body in disbelief and muttered to himself. Elder Heaven Ancestor was floating in Xiao Qin's sea of consciousness at this time. He also had a dumbfounded look on his face. He sighed with mixed feelings. Kid, you are really... Sigh, comparing yourself to others is really annoying. Xiao Qin lowered his head to inspect his body. Apart from his tattered clothes, his body had completely recovered. The injuries from the lightning, the injuries from falling from a high altitude, and the wounds from the tree branches had all disappeared. His skin was fair and smooth as if it was new. Even his wrist, which had been broken by the Bay's spirit beast, had completely recovered. Sitting up and waving his fist, Xiao Qin asked in surprise, Elder Heaven Ancestor, am I really a profound ascension stage master now? Well, although I can't believe it like you, you have indeed broken through. Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice sounded a little sour. Xiao Qin immediately climbed up and took a deep breath. He felt refreshed. It seemed that all the injuries on his body had indeed recovered. Except for his clothes that were burned by the thunder and lightning, there was no other abnormality. Scratching his head, Xiao Qin was puzzled about his breakthrough. He asked Elder Heaven Ancestor again, Elder Heaven Ancestor, what happened just now? How did I suddenly break through? I'm not too sure about the specific situation. Elder Heaven Ancestor returned to his normal mood, but he was also a little puzzled. He could only analyze the situation according to the actual situation. I guess maybe you were lucky. Chapter 1243. As soon as he came into contact with the Bai Zai beast's skin, Xiaochen felt an electric current that fluctuated between strong and weak, stimulating the center of his palm. Thus, he immediately activated his primordial qi and absorbed all the electric current in the Bai Zai beast's body, then dissolved it in his own body. This time, Xiaochen was not knocked down by the electric current. He was still standing steadily. The electric current that was sucked in by him obediently circulated around his body. Then it silently disintegrated in his dantian. Like a clay ox entering the sea, there was not the slightest ripple. However, although he had absorbed quite a lot of electric current, Xiaochen was not able to continue leveling up. It seemed that this trick did not work every time. Whoa! The Bai Zai beast felt that the pressure on its body had lessened by quite a bit. It let out a low cry and woke up. It opened its green eyes and glanced at Xiaochen with a confused look. Alright, stop pretending to be a dead dog. Hurry up and stand up. Otherwise, I'll let you have a taste of being struck by lightning again. Xiaochen stood up and condensed an electric ball technique. He raised it above the Bai Zai beast's head, then raised his leg and kicked it. He raised his eyebrows slightly and threatened impatiently. Seeing the crackling electric ball in Xiaochen's hand, the Bai Zai beast trembled in fear. It used all its strength to support its huge body with its 4 legs, then lowered its head slightly and let out a low whimper as if it was showing weakness. I know you can speak human language. Don't be like a dog always howling. Xiaochen laughed coldly and kicked it again. The Bai Zai beast was slightly stunned. It then remembered that its mumbling earlier might have been heard by this person. It could only rub its hind legs helplessly and said, that's right, I'm a spiritual beast that has cultivated for a few hundred years. Can you not always compare me to a dog? I can easily stomp a bunch of spicy low-level creatures to death. Although the Bai Zai beast knew that Xiaochen was much more powerful than it was not afraid of Xiaochen at all. It was only curious as to why this fellow was able to display his strength in the honorable realm like it did and was not suppressed to the level of a perfected king. Could it be that this fellow was also a spiritual beast? Oh, I didn't expect you to have such pride. Xiaochen shrugged and said disdainfully, what's so great about spiritual beasts? I have a cultivation dog as well. I'll bring it to the honorable realm for a breakthrough another day. When that happens you can come and watch. When it evolves into the universe's super honorable realm dog, it will be able to kill you in no time. Your dog's name sure is long, the Bai Zai beast muttered and waved its front paw. Spicy, alright? When it comes, you can give me a call to tell me to come and watch. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving first. See you later. Once it finished speaking, the Bai Zai beast flapped its body, turned around and burrowed into the forest. It was ready to take this opportunity to leave this place. Come back. Are you not taking me seriously or what? Xiaochen furrowed his brows and immediately threw the thunderball in his hand, smashing it on the ground in front of the Bai's spiritual beast. Boom. The thunderball technique directly blasted a hole in the ground. The Bai's spirit beast trembled all over. Only now did it understand that Xiaochen was serious this time. It hurriedly turned around and obediently walked back, returning to Xiaochen unwillingly. Next, I'll ask you a question and you'll answer it. Xiaochen nodded his head in satisfaction. He said slowly, you'd better be more honest. If I find out that you're lying, you should know what the consequences will be. Once he finished speaking, Xiaochen condensed another electric ball and injected a bit of vitality into it. The electric ball instantly expanded by several times and hung above the Bai Zai beast. He then made a you-know expression at it. The Bai Zai beast immediately lowered its head and acted as if it was obediently waiting for someone to order it around. Xiaochen asked calmly, you've spent so much effort to lure me to this lousy place. What's your purpose? Why did you attack those girls earlier? Nothing much, I just thought it was fun. Plus, you guys are weaker so I wanted to bully you. The Bai Zai beast's saliva flew everywhere as it tried to bluff. Suddenly, it heard a crackling sound that was getting closer. It raised its head and realized that Xiaochen had placed the electric ball on its head. It could almost feel the electric current burning the hair on its head. The Bai Zai beast was so scared that its legs turned to jelly. It immediately changed its expression and explained in all seriousness, I was just joking. I actually wanted to catch a few silvers filled with spiritual qi and come here to be struck by lightning. I want to see what happens to me. What did you say? I think you've been struck dumb by the lightning. You're going around capturing people for this lousy matter? Xiao Chen obviously didn't believe the Bai Zai beast's nonsense. However, before he figured out the reason, he didn't want to rashly kill the Bai Zai beast. An idea flashed through Xiao Chen's mind. He simply raised the electric ball in front of the Bai Zai beast and said in a low voice patiently, "Stop bullshitting. I don't have time to listen to your nonsense. Hurry up and tell me the truth." Seeing the electric ball in front of it, the Bai Zai beast was so scared that its eyes almost turned into a cross. It anxiously defended itself. "I'm lying. That's indeed the case. This is because this is a secret place in the Four Venerable One's secret realms. There are many treasures of heaven and earth here. However, the lightning tribulation often happens here. Furthermore, those lightning bolts don't strike normal silvers or animals. They only strike Xiaoxi who has zero qi on his body. So you might as well find someone with spiritual qi and try it out. Let's see what happens after you're struck." Xiao Chen's expression darkened as he asked. The Bai spirit beast blinked its green eyes and nodded obediently. "Go to hell. Your body is full of spiritual qi. Why don't you try the lightning tribulation yourself? Instead, you want to find innocent people to experiment on? Tell me, do you have nothing better to do?" Xiao Chen kicked the Bai Zai beast fiercely and scolded it angrily. He didn't think that he would become this damn thing's test subject. If it wasn't for the fact that his life was hanging by a thread and he had the idea to share the damage with the Bai Zai beast, perhaps Xiao Chen would already be a wandering spirit by now. "I'm scared. What if the lightning tribulation strikes my sh*t? Of course I'll look for Xiaoxi first." The Bai Zai beast did not feel guilty at all. Instead, it spoke confidently. "I should have struck you long ago." Xiao Chen glared at the Bai Zai beast angrily. When he turned his head, he saw a few fragments lying on the ground not far from him. They looked quite familiar. "How can you, a Xiaoxi, speak like that?" The Bai Zai beast was about to protest when Xiao Chen yelled angrily, "Don't speak. Stay there obediently and don't move. Otherwise I'll electrocute you." Chapter 1244. Xiao Chen left behind the silent Bai Zai spiritual beast and walked closer to the broken pieces. He lowered his head to take a look and realized that his flying sword had been shattered by the lightning. It had already broken into a few pieces and had fallen to the ground. There was no spiritual energy left and only a few pieces of metal were left. It looked like it could no longer be reforged. Xiao Chen sighed as he picked up the fragments of the flying sword with a pained expression. He could not help but feel enraged. He turned around and glared coldly at Bai Zai. "This young master spent a lot of effort to obtain this flying sword. I didn't expect it to be destroyed just like that because of your strange curiosity." "What? You're blaming me for this?" Bai Zai was stunned for a moment and immediately complained. "You were the one who wanted to chase after me. Don't you know that it's easy to get struck by lightning when you're at a high place?" "I don't care about that," Xiao Chen said fiercely. "Unless you can compensate me with something of equal value, don't even think about leaving this place alive." Bai Zai snorted and hesitated for a while. It looked like it was in a difficult position. "What do you want me to compensate you with? I only have 4 spiritual beasts. If I don't have anything else, you're making things difficult for spiritual beasts." "Oh, is that so?" Xiao Chen stroked his chin as he walked back. He circled around the Bai's spirit beast twice and sized it up with great interest. What do you want?" Bai Zai felt uncomfortable under Xiao Chen's gaze. It stomped its feet a few times. "Don't have any improper thoughts about me. I have 4 male spiritual beasts." "You're quite imaginative." Xiao Chen almost spat out. He raised his eyebrows and said, "I see that your legs are quite agile. You can run like a wisp of smoke and you don't even pant when you climb the stairs. I might as well let you replace the flying sword and be my mount." Originally, Xiao Chen didn't want to use Bai Zai as his mount. After all, it was a bit too big and it couldn't be carried around like the flying sword. The most important thing was that it had such a terrifying appearance. If he were to run around the streets with it, it would be too shocking. If he were to accidentally bump into a cowardly cultivator and scare them to death, it would be troublesome. But now that the flying sword had been struck by lightning, Xiao Chen couldn't make another one in a short period of time. This venerable realm was so big. If he ran by foot, even if Xiao Chen had reached the profound ascension stage, it would take him a long time to run. Not to mention he would have to carry Qing Menjing and the others who had just reached the venerable realm. After pondering for a while, Xiao Chen could only choose to temporarily use the Bai's spiritual beast as a replacement. In any case, it was so big that many people could sit on its back. It should not be as cramped as the flying sword. What did you say? After all, I have 4 high-end spirit beasts that have cultivated for several hundred years. Why would they be mounts for a little brat like you? The Bai Zhe spirit beast almost jumped up as it asked in shock. Xiao Qin patted its head and smiled. Don't worry, I have money. I promise I won't mistreat you. I'll have enough fish and meat every day. You can make as much as you want. No, I'm a vegetarian. I'm not interested in fish and meat. Don't waste your time, I won't. Bai Zhe shook its head and refused. It didn't want to be ridden by a human. That would be too embarrassing. But before Bai Zhe could finish, Xiao Qin forced the electric ball in front of it again. He sneered, very well, since you don't want to, there's no point in keeping you. You. What are you going to do? Bai Zhe tried its best to shrink its neck. It wanted to get as far away from the electric ball as possible. Your entire body is a treasure. After you die, I'll take your fur, your inner core, and your... Xiao Qin paused on purpose. He then continued with a sinister smile. I'll sell the spiritual beast whip. The money I earn from selling it should be enough for me to make another flying sword. The Bai's beast was so frightened that it began to stutter. Especially when it heard that Xiao Qin wanted to sell its whip for money, it even subconsciously clamped its hind legs together. The fur on its entire face was trembling, and it was obviously terrified. It had no idea what to do. Don't be like this and that. Have you thought it through? Actually, I still prefer the original flying sword. If it wasn't for the lightning that you attracted and smashed it into pieces, I wouldn't even bother to use a stupid spiritual beast like you as a mount. Xiao Qin pretended to be helpless as he spoke with melancholy. You. Bai Zhe was so angry that its body trembled. Stupid? I'm a 7th level martial honor spiritual beast. How dare this guy use these 2 words to describe me? How despicable. Isn't that so? Look at you, I know you're useless. I bet you eat a lot too. Sooner or later I'll be broke. Xiao Qin teased. He waved the thunderball technique in front of the Bai's beast again and asked impatiently, stop wasting time. Have you made up your mind? If you can't, let me know and we'll start dissecting. Bai Zhe's spirit beast really wanted to reject him with a backbone, but its strength was not as high as the fellow in front of it. If it rejected him, it would not be able to escape even if it wanted to. Not to mention that it would not be able to leave a complete corpse, even that part of it would be sold. Bai Zhe lowered its head and pondered for a moment. Then it nodded dejectedly and said, all right, I agree. However, we have to make a pact. I'm only responsible for being your mount. I won't do any dirty work. If one day you're crippled or disappear, I won't be your slave anymore. After all, high-level spiritual beasts like me will only follow the strong. No problem. However, I don't think such a day will come. Xiao Qin shrugged his shoulders and carelessly stroked the Bai's spiritual beast's fur as he said, just follow me and work hard. Maybe one day, I'll be lucky and catch another beautiful female spiritual beast. When that time comes, I'll make her your wife. Who cares? How can a high-level spiritual beast like me find a trash spiritual beast as a partner? Bai Zhe immediately snorted and protested, haha, I've already agreed. Shouldn't you take that ball away? It's scary. Oh, I forgot. Xiao Qin snapped his fingers and kept the electric ball in front of Bai Zhe. I think you did it on purpose. Bai Zhe mumbled softly, then it asked, where are we going next? By the way, what's your name? Oh, my name is Xiao Qin. You can call me Master. However, don't talk when there are outsiders around. You might scare them. Xiao Qin waved his hand. Chapter 1245. Looking at the withered forest that was shrouded in fog, Xiao Qin asked Bai Zhe excitedly, you said that there's a paradise in front of us and there are many treasures of heaven and earth, right? Where's the exact location? Hurry up and bring me there. Follow me, it's less than 200 meters ahead and it'll be 4. Bai Zhe ignored Xiao Qin's suggestion to call him master. It didn't even see this little brat as its master. Instead, it strode forward with its hooves. Xiao Qin didn't really care. After all, it didn't matter if he called him master or not. He really didn't care about that. As he watched Bai Zhe walk forward, he took off his tattered jacket and sat on its back. Then he stretched his body and leisurely swung his legs. Bai Zhe suddenly felt a weight on its back. It immediately understood what had happened. Although it was displeased, it could only endure it for the time being. It secretly planned to find an opportunity to show Xiao Qin who was the boss. After riding Bai Zhe out of the withered forest, Xiao Chen's face suddenly revealed an extremely shocked expression. It wasn't because of the lightning tribulation or other dangers, but because the scene in front of him was too dreamy. It was so dreamy that Xiao Chen almost thought that he was in a dream. Countless treasures of heaven and earth were like weeds, growing luxuriantly on the surrounding land. There were all kinds of dazzling. Many medicinal herbs with conflicting natures grew together like good brothers. Some of the more precious herbs didn't even have a place to grow and could only climb up the rocks on the side. Xiao Chen gulped and immediately jumped down. He quickly rolled up his jacket into the shape of a bag and began to plunder the treasures of heaven and earth. There were some medicinal herbs that he couldn't name, but after being reminded by the elder heaven ancestor, Xiao Chen was able to recognize quite a few of them. After plundering for a while, Xiao Chen found a pattern and simply picked the precious and rare ones. After filling his bag to the brim, he was still unwilling to give up and continued to stuff the heavenly materials and earthly treasures into his bag. On the other hand, Bai Zhe's behavior was a little strange. It looked nervous and kept looking left and right like a thief. From time to time, it would urge Xiao Chen to hurry up, as if it was very afraid of this place. Hey, what's wrong with you? You worked so hard to trick me to come here, but when we finally arrived, you didn't do anything and just stood there like a fool. What's the point of you coming here? Xiao Chen filled the bag to the brim, then straightened his back and glared at Bai Zhe as he spoke snappily. What the F***ck? Do you think I don't want treasures? Both of us have so much negative energy on us. What if we get struck by lightning? Is it wrong for me to be careful? Bai Zhe was not to be outdone, so it yelled at Xiao Chen at the top of its voice. I think you're really stupid. Xiao Chen was both angry and amused at the same time. He could not help but ask, since you know that this place is dangerous, why don't you take what you want and leave immediately? Are you going to stand here and wait to be struck by lightning? Xiao Chen was speechless towards the Bei's spiritual beast. There was no one else like this simple-minded yet powerful fellow. It was probably because it had stayed in the venerable realm for too long that its brain wasn't working well and its intelligence had been eaten away. Oh, you're right. The spirit beast Bai Zhe nodded as if it was deep in thought. All of a sudden, it took a step forward and quickly charged into the bushes that were filled with rare treasures. The bushes swayed for a moment, then a poochie sound was heard. At first, Xiao Chen looked at its figure in confusion. The more he looked, the more shocked he became. This fellow actually opened its bloody mouth and started to eat the bushes. Looking at how it was wolfing down the food, it seemed like it wanted to eat even the ground. Xiao Chen watched in a daze as Bei's devoured the entire patch of grass, not even sparing the weeds. His jaw nearly dropped in shock as he stood there, unable to say a single word. Burp. Bai Zhe let out a long breath. It licked its lips as if it had not had enough and said in satisfaction, Not bad, it's delicious. I didn't come here in vain. Xiao Chen looked at the barren wasteland and was puzzled. Could it be that this idiot went through so much trouble to come here just to eat a big meal? Was there nothing else? Even if it was to find some rare herbs to increase its rank, it was not going to do anything like that? Why are you standing there like an idiot? You're just standing there in a daze. Let's leave this place quickly. I have a feeling that we're going to face another lightning tribulation soon. The Bei's spirit beast shook its head as it walked back. When it saw Xiao Chen's dumbfounded expression, it used its front hooves to gently kick his leg and urged him impatiently. Oh. Xiao Chen had yet to come back to his senses. He subconsciously jumped onto Bei's back and did not forget to tighten the bag around him. Let's go. Bai Zhe immediately took light steps and quickly escaped from this treasured land. You came here to eat those natural treasures? Xiao Chen asked in disbelief as he sat on the Bei's spirit beast's back. Of course. Why else do you think I came here? Do you really think I'm an idiot? Bai Zhe did not stop and nodded as if it was a matter of course. Boom. Just as Xiao Chen finished speaking, a deafening rumble came from not far behind him. Bai Zhe stopped in its tracks and turned around to look at where it was previously. It shook its body proudly and said, Look, it's a good thing we ran fast. Otherwise we would have been struck by lightning. I'm so smart. Xiao Chen was almost petrified. This spiritual beast was simply an amusing fighter jet. It had risked its life and racked its brains to lure the humans here just to eat those heavenly treasures. Xiao Chen secretly made up his mind. It seemed like he had to find an opportunity to teach it a lesson and enlighten it. Otherwise it would be killed by its foolish behavior sooner or later. Bai Zhe moved very quickly. After the time it took for a joss stick to burn, it brought Xiao Chen back to the place where Xinjing Shen and the others had gone into seclusion. Xiao Qin jumped off the beast's back and searched around the seclusion area for a long time. However, he could not find any traces of the women. Song Qingshu and Hong Laosan's blood were still on the ground, proving that they had been there. However, other than that, there were no other clues. Xiao Qin stood in the seclusion area and looked around. Then, he sighed deeply with a melancholic expression. Sigh. It was not easy for him to meet Goddess Shen. In the end, he did not even have the time to chat with her. He did not even have the time to be tender and sweet. She had disappeared again. He guessed that she had followed Hong Zhu and the others back to the Hong family. After all, Song Qingshu and Hong Laosan's injuries were quite serious. If they were not treated in time, it was very likely that they would die. Chapter 1246. Although Xiao Qin didn't care about Song Qingshu and third young master Hong's lives, Hong Zhu and the others naturally wouldn't abandon them. Goddess Shen was so kind she would definitely go back with them. Seeing how disappointed Xiao Qin was as he walked back, Bai Zhe asked curiously, "Hey Xiao Qin. Xiao Qin, what's your relationship with those girls? Also, who were the two idiots who attacked the puppets? Could it be that you stole their wives so they're here to seek revenge? They're so weak they definitely won't be able to defeat you. Why are you asking so many useless questions? I say, as a spirit beast, why are you so gossipy?" Xiao Qin rolled his eyes and retorted snappily. "Can't I be curious? You four cultivators are really stingy." Bai Zhe snorted through its nostrils. Xiao Qin looked back at the seclusion area that was empty. Since Goddess Shen and the others had already left, he should go back first. Once he left the venerable realm, he would go to the Hong family to look for them. "Let's go, we'll go to another place to pick them up. Alright, let's get some wild game to bring back." Xiao Qin rode on Bai Zhe's back and patted its neck as he gave an order. "What? We still have to go somewhere else? My legs are about to break." Bai Zhe moved its feet and grumbled unhappily. "Just leave when I tell you to. Why are you talking so much? Are you a chatterbox?" Xiao Qin patted its head again. The Bai spirit beast snorted angrily and slowly walked forward. Xiao Qin frowned. Just as he was about to fly into a rage, he suddenly remembered something. This Bai spirit beast had thick limbs and a sturdy body. It looked fierce and ferocious. Furthermore, its eyes were a deep green and flickered with a frightening light. It was obvious that it was not a good person. If he were to ride it and suddenly appear in front of Cheng Menjing Jiamuzhen and the others, he reckoned that they would be scared to death. After pondering for a moment, Xiao Qin decided to transform the appearance of the Bai's beast into a white horse. Apart from the fact that the white horse was slightly larger, there was nothing strange about it. Instead, it made Xiao Qin's red lips and white teeth look very handsome. "What did you do to the doll?" Bai Zhe suddenly felt its vision blur. It immediately sensed that Xiao Qin had done something to it, but it did not know the specifics, so it asked. "Oh, nothing much. I just made you look like a horse so that you won't scare other people when you go out," Xiao Qin explained lightly. F***CK. I have 4 high-grade spiritual beasts, and you actually turn me into a horse? Who would want to see that stupid look? Hurry up and bring me back." Bai Zhe was instantly enraged and shouted angrily. This Bai's beast seemed to be very concerned about its appearance. However, when it looked down, it realized that it still looked the same. It couldn't help but feel puzzled. Since only other people can see it, it doesn't matter if you don't like it. Hurry up and go. I'm in a hurry. Xiao Qin couldn't be bothered with its protest. He squeezed the horse's belly and signaled it to move forward. "All right." After taking 2 steps, Xiao Qin spoke again. "In the future you won't be a Bai's beast in front of other people. Since you're a horse now, I'll call you Grass Mud Horse for convenience." "No, absolutely not." The Bai's spirit beast almost jumped and it roared furiously. "I'll tolerate it if you make me look like a horse. But the name Sijia. Actually it's not too bad." As Bai Zhe roared, its aura weakened. This was because it suddenly saw a sizzling electric ball hanging in front of its eyes. The terrifying memory of being electrocuted immediately surged into its mind, causing it to be unable to resist at all. Feeling helpless, Bai Zhe could only curse a few times. It forcefully suppressed the anger in its heart and galloped in the direction that Xiao Qin had pointed. While it was running, the Bai's spirit beast even played a few tricks. It purposely chose to travel through the dense forest at a fast speed, and from time to time, it would perform a few difficult moves such as sliding and drifting to the side, and making sudden stops and turns, all so that it could shake Xiao Qin off its back. Bai Zhe felt that even if it couldn't kill Xiao Qin, it would at least cripple him. It was even willing to watch him fall on his face. However, it was disappointed in the end. No matter how it twisted and ran, Xiaochen was like a statue that was fixed on its back. He did not move an inch and was not affected at all. Instead, it was Baizhe who almost crashed into a tree due to its lack of control over its direction. Feeling helpless, Baizhe could only temporarily give up on its mischief. Since this trick was useless, it could only wait for a suitable opportunity to take revenge in the future. For now, it would just have to endure it. Sister Minjing, why hasn't Xiaochen's husband returned after such a long time? Could something have happened to him? Tian Xiaoring asked dejectedly as she stared at the endless fog outside the seclusion area. A child's words carry no harm. Cheng Minjing glared at Tian Xiaoring and scolded, "What are you talking about? Xiaochen is so powerful, of course he wouldn't have met with an accident. He just ran a little further away and didn't make it in time. Sigh, Sister Xiaoring is about to starve to death." Tian Xiaoring pouted and rubbed her stomach pitifully. "I hope that Xiaochen's husband will bring back some wild game and treat my stomach well." Eat. You only know how to eat." Cheng Minjing was truly angered to death by Tian Xiaoring. She couldn't help but stretch out her hand to pinch Tian Xiaoring's chubby cheeks. Panting with rage, she lectured, "It's not like you don't know how dangerous the Venerable One's secret realm is. Perhaps Xiaochen is in trouble? Can't you just bear with it?" "Ouch. That hurts, Sister Minjing, let go of me." Sister Xiaoring knows she's wrong. After struggling to break free from Cheng Minjing's clutches, Tian Xiaoring covered her face and sat on the side, feeling wronged. She muttered, "And you said that I'm a child's words carry no harm. You're talking nonsense too. Xiaochen's husband is a mutant, he can handle any kind of trouble." Cheng Minjing looked at Tian Xiaoring's innocent face and sighed softly. Truth be told, young Miss Cheng was also very worried about Xiaochen's safety. Earlier, everyone had finished consolidating their cultivation bases. Originally they thought that they could relax a little. Unexpectedly, they encountered some cultivators who wanted to snatch their seclusion location. Although everyone had broken through to the Honored One's realm, their strength was still suppressed to the full-phase Monarch realm. Moreover, they were outnumbered. Therefore they could only choose to hide in the seclusion area and activate their defensive measures. They could only rely on the seclusion area's defensive measures to defend themselves. Chapter 1247. Seeing that there was no hope of snatching the treasure, the cultivators could only guard the area for a while before leaving resentfully. However, just as everyone heaved a sigh of relief and thought that the danger was over, a few ferocious beasts appeared out of nowhere and glared at the people in the seclusion area. One of the ferocious beasts even stretched out its claws and scratched at the barrier of the seclusion area in an attempt to destroy the protective measures. Fortunately, the barrier was sturdy enough that it did not succeed. However, it still gave Cheng Minjing and the rest a good scare. Seeing that the ferocious beasts tried a few times and finally returned to the forest in vain, the group persisted for a while longer before they stopped circulating their mental cultivation techniques and relaxed a little. However, while the others could relax a little, Cheng Minjing did not dare to let down her guard. She was the only cultivator in the group, so she naturally took on the responsibility of releasing her divine sense to observe the movements in the surroundings so that she could warn the group at any time. Previously, when the cultivators and the ferocious beasts attacked, it was because of Cheng Minjing's warning that they could activate the protective measures in time to protect the group. "Don't be too anxious, Xiaochen should be back soon. I think he might have lost his way. After all, the Venerable One's secret realm is very large. Coupled with the thick fog, it's normal for him to be unable to find his way back." Jia Muzhen smiled and eased the atmosphere. Just as Cheng Minjing was about to speak, her divine sense suddenly detected a movement not far away. She immediately waved her hand and signaled, "Everyone be careful. There's movement in the forest on the left. Quickly circulate your mental cultivation techniques and activate the protective measures." The group was already used to Cheng Minjing giving orders and trusted her early warning. Naturally, they did not dare to be negligent and sat down cross-legged. Not long after, they entered a state of cultivation. Dong. Just as everyone closed their eyes and concentrated on circulating their mental cultivation techniques, a crisp knocking sound suddenly came from the barrier of the seclusion area. Cheng Minjing was so frightened that she trembled. She did not dare to relax and continued to circulate her mental cultivation method. Then she opened her eyes slightly and looked over. Outside the retreat, Xiaochen was smiling and riding on a big white horse. He was holding a few hairs in his left hand and a few stones in his right hand. He was throwing them one by one at the retreat. However, every stone was bounced off by the protective measures and fell to the ground with a thud. Xiao Minjing stood up in surprise and joy. Her worried heart was finally at ease. She couldn't help but complain, "Why did you throw stones at us? Can't you just say something? You almost scared me to death." The others also heard Qing Minjing shout and immediately opened their eyes. When they saw Xiao Qin standing in front of them with a smile, they all stood up happily. Seeing that the defensive measures of the retreat had been lifted, Qing Minjing walked in front of Xiao Qin and said with a sullen face, "Really? He just hunted a few hares. How could he be gone for so long? Did he really get lost? Or did he go into the hare's nest? Where did he get this big white horse?" "It's a long story." Xiao Qin jumped off the horse's back and rubbed Qing Minjing's head. Then he smiled and looked around at the crowd that was surging over. He pressed his hands together and said, "I know you guys are starving. Let's take care of these rabbits first. Let's talk while we roast them. After that, we can eat them." After asking everyone to pick up some wood around, Xiao Qin quickly made a fire. Then he put the cooked hares on it and roasted them. Everyone sat around the fire and listened to Xiao Qin's brief description of the previous encounter. "You met Jingxian? Shouldn't she be cultivating in the martial arts world? How could she appear here?" Qing Minjing asked in astonishment as she flipped through the rabbit meat on the rack. She and Xin Jingxian had been best friends for many years. After not seeing each other for a year, she often thought about her. Now that she suddenly heard news of her, she was naturally very concerned. "I'm not too sure about the specific reason, but I know that she came here to break through to the Venerable Realm. After that, she should be going to participate in a sacrificial ceremony in the cultivation world or something." Xiao Qin shook his head and explained what he already knew. As for the purpose of Xin Jingxian and Hongzhu's group, Xiao Qin was still confused. He only faintly felt that the Hong and Song families were not as simple as they seemed. In particular, Hongzhu's vague mention of the sacrificial ceremony in the cultivation world made him feel even more uneasy. Usually the so-called sacrificial rites would require one to bring things to offer as a sacrifice, and one would definitely have to pay a huge price. Especially this kind of sacrificial rites that involved living people, it was even more ominous, and the result was very likely to be death. The more Xiao Qin thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. He secretly regretted it. If he had known earlier, he would have left with Xin Jingxian at that time. He could not have left her alone there and gone back with Hongzhu and the others. "Xiao Qin, I feel that there is something wrong with the sacrificial ceremony you mentioned." Qing Minjing took a bite of the rabbit meat. After thinking for a while, she frowned and said, "How about this? We will leave here now and return to the inner martial arts world. While we are at it, we will inquire about the location of the Hong and Song families. Then we will find them and bring Jingxian back to the Jia family. I don't want her to encounter any danger." "Yes, that's what I plan to do." Xiao Qin nodded. "Once everyone has filled their stomachs, we will pack up as soon as possible and prepare to leave." Since everyone had already broken through to the martial honor realm, there was no point in staying in the honor realm. Xiao Qin did not want to make an irreversible mistake because of a moment of hesitation. "Husband Xiao Qin, is this big white horse really the base spiritual beast that you mentioned?" Tian Saoring's mouth was full of grease and there was even a roasted rabbit leg in his mouth. He stood up and curiously circled the base spiritual beast twice, carefully sizing it up. The base spiritual beast was originally a little unhappy. Earlier, Xiao Qin had introduced it too little and did not highlight its true abilities. Now that someone was interested in it, it immediately straightened its body and wanted Tian Saoring to see how powerful it was. "Sister Saori, I think." Tian Saori took 2 steps back and curled his lips. "It seems a little silly. It doesn't have the might and dominance of a spirit beast at all." "Nay nay." Bai Zai's hair stood on end. It wanted to roar a few times to scare Tian Saor, but it didn't expect that its roar would sound like that of an ordinary colt. It wasn't threatening at all. It could even understand human language? "What's wrong? You're not happy just because I said a few words?" Tian Soran wolfed down the rabbit leg and threw the bones on the ground. Then he wiped his oily hands on the white marsh beast's body. This time the Bai Zai spirit beast collapsed even more. It was so angry that it jumped back and forth a few times, calling out continuously. Although it was able to get rid of the oil stains by shaking its fur, Tian Suren's actions were too humiliating. Oh no, that's too insulting to spirit beasts. Chapter 1248. Tian Suruan and Bai Zhe stared at each other for a long time. Tian Suruan wiped her mouth and said, "Husband Xiao Qin, why don't we roast this spirit beast and eat it? Sister Suruan has never tasted a spirit beast in her life." "All right, Suruan. Don't compete with that stupid spirit beast." Xiao Qin shook his head. Seeing that everyone was almost done eating and cleaning up, he walked over and carried Tian Suruan onto the horse's back. Then he sent Qing Menjing and the other girls up as well. After the girls sat down, Xiao Qin called out to Jiao Muzhen and the Jiao Renzhong, "You guys come up too. My flying sword was smashed by the lightning, so I can only use this stupid guy as a means of transportation. You guys just have to make do." Huff huff huff. Bai Zhe was so angry that it almost rolled its eyes. However, in front of Xiao Qin, it didn't dare to flare up. It could only exhale a few hot breaths from its nostrils to express its dissatisfaction. However, Xiao Qin directly ignored its silent protest. He jumped onto the horse's back first and sat behind the girls. Then he picked up Jiao Muzhen and the Jiao Renzhong and arranged them behind him. Then he ordered Bai Zhe to gallop toward the inner martial world's teleportation array. After leaving the gloomy jungle and returning to the main road, Xiao Qin found that there were a lot less cultivators shuttling back and forth. He reckoned that those people had already found a seclusion spot and were working hard to break through to the venerable realm. Xiao Qin was not interested in the others. He continued walking along the main road. However, it did not take him long to see two seclusion sites lined up side by side. A group of cultivators had gathered around the two sites. Among them there were a few figures that Xiao Qin felt were quite familiar. However, due to the interference of the fog, he couldn't see who they were for a while. Xiao Qin released his divine sense to investigate and found that the leaders were two acquaintances, Tang Qianling and Tang Qianqi, as well as the disciples of Awakening Heaven sect who had besieged him before. At this time, they were discussing how to allocate these two seclusion sites so as to make the most reasonable use of resources. Looking at Tang Qianling and the others who occupied more than half of the road, Xiao Qin couldn't help but frown and yell, "The fools in front, hurry up and scram. This young master has urgent matters to attend to. Those of you who don't scram, watch out for your dog lives." After shouting, Xiao Qin squeezed the horse's abdomen and sped up. Anyway, he had already warned them. If they didn't get out of the way, they would die. "What the hell? You actually dare to clamor in front of young Master Tang? I think you're tired of living." When Tang Qianqi heard the roar, he turned his head and saw a white object rushing out of the fog. He gathered his qi and was about to curse, but just as he was cursing, he felt something hit his chest heavily. Under this hit, Tang Qianqi was unable to resist. His whole body flew out with a whoosh, and fell heavily not far away. He lay on the ground for a long time and could not get up. The corner of his mouth was still bubbling with blood. "I warned you to get out of the way, but you still stood there like a fool. You've damaged my horse. Can you afford to pay for it?" Xiao Qin jumped off the back of Bai Zhe and sneered at Tang Qianqi, who was not far away. After catching the rest of the people on the ground, Xiao Qin brought them to Tang Qianling and the others. He pretended to be surprised and said, "Aya, isn't this little Tang? What are you all doing here? Is there money on the ground?" As Bai Zhe had just sent a person flying, it was in a good mood. Most of its originally sullen emotions had been vented. It followed behind Xiao Qin and shook its head proudly. "Xiao Qin, why are you here? *CK. What kind of stupid horse is this? Why is it so big?" When Tang Qianling saw that Tang Qianqi had been sent flying, he wanted to get angry. However, when he saw that the person who came was Xiao Qin, he immediately lost his temper. When he turned his head and saw the big white horse that Bai Zhe had transformed into, Tang Qianling lost his composure and shouted in surprise. The Bei's spiritual beast rolled its eyes at Tang Qianling. "Another ignorant fellow. *CK your mother horse." Xiao Qin patted Bai Zhe's head and said calmly, "Why are you scolding me the moment you come up?" Tang Qianling frowned. A strange thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Could it be that the name of this stupid horse is called *CK your mother horse? *CK Xiao Qin really has a bad taste. "I don't want to waste my breath on a retard like you," Xiao Qin said, then glanced behind Tang Qianling. He didn't see any trace of elder son except for Jia Tuyao, who was lying on the stretcher. Xiao Qin asked in surprise, Where did that idiot surnamed son go?" "You ask me, but who should I ask? Where did elder son go? How would I know?" Tang Qianling impatiently waved his hand. He ordered his men to check on Tang Qianqi's injury, then looked at Xiao Qin with vigilance and said, "Xiao Qin, if you don't have anything else to say, don't disturb our breakthrough." "Why not? I have something else to say." Xiaochen didn't let Tang Qianling go so easily. He continued to ask, "Do you know where the Hong family and the Song family of the internal martial arts world are?" Tang Qianqi, who was lying on the ground, suddenly moved. The Hong family? The family that Hong Zhu was from? He knew it. Although their family was small, in order to win the heart of a beauty, he had specially inquired about it. He didn't expect that Xiaochen actually wanted to know more about the Hong family. Could it be that he was interested in Hong Zhu? Wishful thinking. I won't tell you what I know. Hong Zhu is definitely in my bag. What Hong family and Song family? Never heard of them. Tang Qianling shook his head and said disdainfully, I have never cared about that kind of tattered small family. Are you done asking? You're done asking. Before Tang Qianling could finish, a young disciple who was the leader of the Qi Tian sect suddenly noticed something and suddenly jumped out. He pointed at Xing Gongzi, who was behind Xiaochen, and shouted, Xing Gongzi, you have already broken through to the venerable realm, why are you still with Xiaochen and the rest? This person was Elder Chen's last disciple. He only knew how to concentrate on training and never asked about the matters of the sect. He didn't know that Elder Sun had deliberately left Xing Gongzi by Xiaochen's side to monitor Xiaochen's every move. Therefore, when he saw that she was mixed in with Xiaochen's group, he was so indignant. Xing Gongzi was shocked. Where did this rash youth come from? Now that the people from Qi Tian sect and Xiaochen's group were present, and there were also people from the Tang family watching from the side, how was she going to explain? There were others in Qi Tian sect who knew about the situation. They pulled that disciple and whispered, Elder Sun knows about this matter. Chapter 1249. Know what? The young disciple sneered and rolled his eyes at the person who tried to persuade him. He arrogantly lectured, Elder Sun is muddled, but are you all muddled as well? Xing Gongzi has already harmed Xiaochen many times. How is he still safe and sound? I don't care if you believe it or not, but I don't believe it. You idiot, why are you blindly spouting nonsense when you don't understand? Xiaochen glared at the young disciple and said matter-of-factly, I like Xing Gongzi and am currently pursuing her. Furthermore, I am magnanimous and have already forgiven her. When Xing Gongzi heard this, her face turned red and she quietly lowered her head. Her heart was beating wildly. Was this a confession from Xiaochen? Furthermore, he did it in front of so many people. It was so embarrassing. Should she agree to him? No way, no way. Perhaps Xiaochen only wanted to fool the people from Awakening Heaven sect and purposely said this. He seemed to have done this in the past as well. This person had a glib tongue and his words were not reliable. It was better to observe him for a while more before deciding. You're talking nonsense. The young disciple was not to be outdone and retorted sarcastically, you have so many women behind you. How do you still have the time to pursue others? This reason is too lousy. What? Money can't buy my willingness. Xiaochen sneered and condensed an electric ball in his hand. He stared at the young disciple and said, But you brat, you actually dare to bare your fangs and jump up and down like a monkey in front of this young master. Are you asking for a beating? Could it be that being struck by lightning just now wasn't satisfying enough and you want to try it again? Seeing a bright blue electric ball suddenly appear in Xiaochen's hand, the young disciple was so frightened that his face turned pale and he took a few steps back. Although he relied on his status as an outstanding disciple of the sect and dared to reprimand Xing Gongzi without any misgivings, he had no way to deal with Xiaochen, who spoke with his fists. He really didn't expect that Xiaochen would be so biased towards her. For a moment, he was shocked and afraid and didn't know what to say to counterattack. How boring. You've been intimidated so easily? Xiaochen curled his lips and withdrew his electric ball art in disdain. He then called for everyone to jump back onto the base spirit beast's back. With Xiaochen's current cultivation, he couldn't be bothered to waste time with this group of people. The most important thing right now was to find Xinjing Xian and the others. Sitting on the base spiritual beast's back, Xiaochen looked down at Tang Qianling's group and calmly said, I still have important matters to attend to, so I don't have the time to waste with you scum. Go on with your gay affairs. Following that, the base spirit beast spat out a breath of hot air and raised its front hooves. Then it quickly disappeared into the fog with Xiaochen and the others. Humph! Why aren't you going out now that you've advanced? The venerable realm is filled with danger. When you encounter it, you'll have no one to help you even if you cry for help. You deserve to die. Tang Qianling heaved a sigh of relief and glared hatefully at Xiaochen's back. Turning around to check on Tang Qianqi's injuries, Tang Qianling found that he was only slightly shaken and was not a big deal. Thus, he didn't take it to heart and continued to command the others to enter the seclusion point and prepare to break through. After Xiao Chen and the others ran forward for a distance, they confirmed that Tang Qianling and the others could no longer see them. Only then did they change direction and flew towards the teleportation portal. Xiao Chen naturally wanted to go out. However, after he met Tang Qianling and the others, he suddenly had an idea. Therefore, he didn't want them to see him walking out so openly. Xiao Chen intended to take this opportunity to inquire about the Hong family and the Song family while also looking for the mysterious place that Jia Muzhen mentioned outside the secret realm. Jia Muzhen said before that he accidentally learned that Qi Tianmen sent the workers of the Tianyu mine to a mysterious place. It was possible that Xiao Chen's father, Cheng Minjing's uncle and Tang Tang's parents were all sent there. Although it was only a speculation, Xiao Chen always had a vague feeling that his father's disappearance seemed to have an inexplicable relationship with Qi Tianmen. If he could find the mysterious place, he might really be able to find out the whereabouts of his father. In addition, after Jia Muzhen became the young master, he gradually had contact with the family affairs. He also vaguely knew some of the situation of Qi Tianmen's biohuman experiments. However, Jia Yuto had always been mainly responsible for the family's cooperation with the outside world. After Jia Yubian lost his life, Qi Tianmen handed over this matter to him. Therefore, only Jia Yuto knew the specific content. However, this second uncle had always adopted a strict and defensive strategy when dealing with Jia Muzhen. Therefore, Jia Muzhen had no way to obtain detailed information. He only knew that Qi Tianmen had united the three major families to develop biohumans. He was not clear about other details. Jia Muzhen had always trusted Xiao Chen. He also told him about this matter in full detail. Although Xiao Chen didn't say it, he had a strong worry in his heart. Was there any connection between the mysterious place and this biohuman experiment? Could my father have also been transformed into a biohuman and sent to that mysterious place? On the way to the secret realm, Xiao Chen had discussed this matter with Cheng Minjing and Tang Tang. Both of them also felt that this was very likely. Therefore, they were more and more worried about their loved ones. Now that there was this opportunity, Xiao Chen planned to take advantage of the main forces of several sects and families swarming into the Venerable's secret realm to investigate this situation. After quietly leaving the Venerable's secret realm, Xiao Chen and his group stayed near the pier. They went back and forth to ask many people, but unfortunately, they couldn't get the specific address of the Hong family and the Song family. After all, in the martial arts world, there were many small and medium-sized families like this. However, these two families were usually very low-key and did not have any business dealings with other families. Therefore, even fewer people knew about them. However, in the process of asking for information, Xiao Chen and his group received another piece of information. Not far from the west of the Secret Realms pier, there seemed to be a similar transmission portal. However, after asking around, Xiao Chen realized that although many people mentioned this situation, basically none of them had actually seen the transmission portal. Most of them were just spreading rumors, and the more they spread, the more unbelievable it became. In the end, no one knew where the transmission portal led to. Although many practitioners knew about this rumor, they still looked skeptical. Since the process of entering the Venerable's secret realm was so mature, and everyone knew the details and they could go with their fellow disciples, it was much safer. Who would be willing to take the risk of going to another unknown transmission portal? Chapter 1250. Seeing that they really couldn't get anything out of them, Xiao Chen, Jia Muzhen, and the others discussed for a while. Instead of continuing to wander around like headless flies and trying their luck to ask about the whereabouts of the Hong family and Song family, it was better to explore the teleportation formation. Who knows, they might find more valuable information. After everyone finished their discussion, Xiao Chen rode on bays and led the group to the west. After leaving the pier, the people along the way gradually became sparse. There were very few pedestrians, and it was completely different from the bustling scene at the pier. The further west they went, the more remote it became. Other than a few wandering beasts and abandoned buildings by the side of the road, there was nothing else. It was unknown whether it was because the scenery was too desolate or because the area was relatively large, but when the cultivators said that it wasn't far to the west, Xiao Chen and the rest felt that it was rather far. Even the extremely fast Bai spirit beast had to run for a long time before it could reach its destination. Just as everyone was about to arrive, Xiao Chen's divine sense suddenly sensed that there was a group of low-level cultivators guarding the road in front of them. Looking at their clothes, they should be people from Awakening Heaven sect. Xiao Chen didn't want to get entangled with them too much, nor was he willing to beat the grass and scare the snake. Thus, he simply used a camouflage technique and directly whizzed past the group of cultivators. The cultivators guarding the road only felt a gust of wind blow past them, causing them to sway. However, after standing up straight and looking again, they didn't find any traces of anything, so they didn't think much of it. Xiaochen let Bei slow down a little. After walking for about half an hour, the outline of a teleportation formation finally faintly appeared in front of them. After gradually getting closer, everyone realized that the teleportation formation was constantly shining with a faint white light. It seemed that someone had activated the formation at the scene, causing it to be in operation. However, they didn't know what they were doing. Xiaochen quickly looked. There's a group of people there. They seem to be biohumans. Little Miss Xing was sitting at the very front of the spirit beasts, so she could see that there were many people standing in front of the teleportation array. They were all slowly walking towards the array. As those people basically had dull eyes and sluggish movements, Miss Xing was very familiar with this type of people. Therefore, she immediately determined that these people should be the biohumans created by Awakening Heavenly Gate. And Xiaochen nodded slightly. His heart ached as he stared at the rigid biohumans. He urged the wizard spiritual beast to speed up and charge forward. Recalling that she used to be manipulated like this group of biohumans, Tang Tang also felt very uncomfortable. Tears kept swirling in her eyes. She wished she could grow a pair of wings immediately, fly over directly, and save all of them. Xiaochen. That biohuman's back seems to be my uncle Cheng Zhongqian. Cheng Minjing, who had been staring in front, suddenly became nervous. She pulled Xiaochen with one hand and pointed at the back of a biohuman in khaki clothes with the other. She said anxiously, Let's hurry up and save him. If that array is activated, it'll be too late. Xiaochen nodded. He estimated that the distance should be about right. He exerted force on his feet and immediately jumped up from the back of the wizard spiritual beast. As he rushed forward, he shouted, All of you stop. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiaochen had already condensed 2 thunderballs in his hands. He smashed them fiercely at the teleportation formation not far away, trying to destroy it directly and thus stop Awakening Heavenly Gate's evil deeds. Boom, boom. The 2 thunderballs approached the teleportation formation at an extremely fast speed. Then they exploded above it, making a deafening explosion. However, the shock wave of the explosion was completely blocked by the protective measures of the formation. The moment the thunderballs exploded, the teleportation formation glowed with a white light. The biohumans who were already standing inside instantly disappeared. It was obvious that they had been teleported to another place. Xiaochen was the closest to the formation. At the moment when the white light flashed, he seemed to see a familiar figure standing in the middle of the formation. It seemed to be his father. Xiaochen's heart was in his throat. He did not have time to think about anything. He immediately flew over as fast as he could, wanting to enter the teleportation formation with his father and follow him to see what was going on. However, before he could reach the teleportation formation, a few people suddenly flashed out of the remaining biohumans. They exuded an extremely majestic aura and forcibly blocked Xiaochen's way. Standing at the front of those people was Situ Qitian. As soon as he rushed out, he pointed at Xiaochen and scolded, Brat, stop right there. This is the territory of the Awakening Heaven sect. No one is allowed to enter. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Situ Qitian had originally wanted to directly attack and kill Xiaochen. However, he considered that there was still a group of biohumans that had not been teleported in. If he could not kill Xiaochen immediately, this brat would find an opportunity to cause trouble and destroy the teleportation formation. That would not be worth it. After weighing the pros and cons, Situ Qitian could only first protect the formation and the biohumans behind him. He stared at Xiaochen's every move with a vigilant look. At this time, Jia Yuto also stood out. He immediately saw Jia Muzhen and Jia Renzhong who had just arrived. He was instantly enraged. He stomped his feet and scolded, Jia Muzhen, you little bastard, hurry up and take Xiaochen away. Don't stay here and cause trouble. This is a big matter. It's not a game you guys are playing. Jia Yuto, who do you think you are? How dare you order me around? I'm the current young master of the Jia family. Since the Jia family is involved in this matter, I naturally have the right to know the relevant situation. Jia Muzhen naturally did not want to be outdone. He strode to Xiaochen's side and stood side by side with him. He did not have the slightest intention of retreating. Ah, Jia Yuto, can you do it? You're just a brat who is still wet behind the ears. Do you really think that you're invincible just because you've become the young master? An old man in white also walked over, revealing the strength of a venerable perfection. He stared coldly at Jamuzin and said, "Brat, I advise you to take your lovers behind you and get out of here quickly. Now that the people in charge of the three major families of the internal martial arts world are here, I'm afraid you don't have the qualifications to stop this matter." Another old man in red also had the strength of a venerable perfection. He appeared in front of everyone along with the old man in white and said sinisterly, "This old man in red was the old master of the Yu family, and the old man in white in front of him was the old master of the Tang family. They usually cultivated in seclusion and rarely appeared in front of the world. This time, they had specially come to escort the biohumans into the world of cultivators to explore. Originally, they thought that it would be smooth sailing. They never expected that a few hotheads would appear halfway through. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.